the perpetuity of government is assured. Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mariam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I have a question of the first one, not this one, so I can continue.
No, you may not continue. Just take your seat. Senator Chiranke, not in. Senator Murgo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm asking a question in regard to the attaches that they have sent to particularly Saudi Arabia. When we were there.
Senator Murgo, it's got nothing to do with the question by the Senator Morango. That relates to the first question, which is now closed. Senator Maruma is walked out. Senator Methu, not present. Senator Osotsi.
Mr. Speaker, mine is just a concern because the first part of the question, I am not satisfied with the answer given by the CS. And that's why I was trying to raise a point of order. So, Mr. Speaker,
Senator Osotsi, I think the CS undertook, just like he did in respect to the question by Senator Mazayo, to find out and come back to you.
Mr. Speaker, that has been a trend, even with the predecessor.
So let me assist you, Senator Osotsi. Honorable CS, within 7 days, we need to get a detailed response to the question by Senator Osotsi and the question by Senator Mazayo.
Very well, Mr. Speaker.
To be filed with the office of the clerk.
Very well, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sigei, Senator Wambua Enoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've had the CS talk about a national rehabilitation program for street children. I would want him to clarify how many children are in this program and where is that facility that is doing the rehabilitation. The Speaker, if you allow me, the Speaker, apart from being the Senator of Kitui, I'm also the principal assistant to the minority leader. And he has received information, just as we are seated here, about the question that he had asked about Maureen. And if the CS could listen to this, the Speaker, that lady is said to be in very, very critical condition. It may not actually wait for 7 days, the Speaker. The Speaker, I would request that you direct that the ministry moves with speed, actually even today, to contact Maureen in Saudi and find out what help can be extended to that lady, because we are actually running a risk. You have just received information from the minority leader that the lady is doing extremely badly. I thank you, the Speaker.
Senate, Honorable CS, as you respond to the first limp of that question, take note of the concern about the lady who is critically ill in Saudi Arabia. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The National Rehabilitation Program is one whereby we work with different agencies and whereby we monitor as a government to ensure that they're being rehabilitated. As a government, we are about to set up a center here in Mavoko and others with funds coming in so that we can be able to take our street children to some of those centers. We have a few that are set up that come and go, and I'll be able to align the system. I'm trying to fix the system and ensure that we eliminate street families so that we rehabilitate our children, and especially identify why are they on the street. Are they on the street because they don't have a home, or are they on the street because it's better to be on the street financially and all that. Mr. Speaker, I take cognizance of the concern about our Kenyan who is ailing, Maureen, and I undertake that within 48 hours, I'll provide this House with a letter detailing what we have found out and her status, and we'll ensure that she's assisted. The life of every Kenyan, the condition of every Kenyan, the livelihood, the health of any Kenyan whether they're in Kenya or outside Kenya, and especially when they're outside Kenya, is critical. And it doesn't matter where they are or how they got there. It is our responsibility to help them. And I'm going to communicate with my colleague, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to ensure that we move with speed to find what is happening and to be able to assist Maureen. I'll deal with both issues within 48 hours, Mr. Speaker, sir, with your indulgence. I submit.
Senator Miraj.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa ya pili. Ningependa kumuuliza waziri kama ako na takwimu za wale watoto wanaorandaranda ambao wameongezeka na wamekuwa watu wazima kiasi cha kwamba na wao wamezaa watoto wengine ambao sasa wamekuwa watoto wa kurandaranda pale mjini Mombasa. Bwana Spika, imefikia kiwango cha kwamba familia hizi zimeingia katika makaburi mashuhuri yanayojulikana kama Mbaraki Cemetery, na wameweka makazi pale. Ningependa waziri atueleze ni mikakati gani inaweza kutambua watoto wanaorandaranda, ama ni kuna kipimo gani cha kiserikali ambacho kinapima jamii ambazo zinarandaranda, nikiazimia hao watoto na familia zao. Na suala hili la hawa watoto limeleta sintofahamu kubwa hadi kuongezeka kwa masuala ya utovu wa usalama katika maeneo yetu ya Mombasa. Je, kuna hatua gani ambazo zinachukuliwa kuwajua hawa kweli ni watoto wa kurandaranda na ni sababu gani wanaishi katika mji wa Mombasa? Kwa sababu kuna vidole vya lawama vimekuwa vikinyoroshwa kwa gavana pindi anapojaribu kuleta usawa katika hawa watoto. Je, kuna hatua gani zinazochukuliwa kuwatambua kwanza wapi ni watoto wa kurandaranda halali na ni kwa nini wameongezeka kwa 80% katika mji wa gatuzi wa Mombasa? Asante Bwana Spika.
Honorable CS.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Miraj. Hesabu ambayo tumesema tuifanye ile census itaweza kutupa takwimu ya kutosha, tutaweza kufahamu ni wangapi ambao wanarandaranda katika maeneo yote ya Kenya, pia Mombasa. Ni ukweli ya kwamba wengine wamezaliwa hapo, wamezaa hapo, na hata wengine pengine watakuwa wana wajukuu hapo, wanaishi kwenye barabara, wanaishi sehemu tofauti. Kwa hivyo ni jambo ambalo linatatanisha sana, kwa sababu kuona watu wanaendelea kuongezeka. Ndio nimesema kwamba tumeona idadi imeanza kuongezeka tangu wakati wa COVID. Baada ya COVID kumekuwa na hii shida kwa sababu ya upungufu wa hela, na tunataka kuangalia ni kwa nini weko hapo, na kama wengine wameingia katika hali ya kutumia madawa ya kulevya, hali ya upungufu wa usalama, kuwa wahalifu. Kwa hiyo tutaweza kuchangia wakati kuweza kuokoa hawa watoto na vijana na kina mama wenye kwenye barabara. Ni jambo ambalo linaendelea kwa kila wakati, hatusimamii, hatusemi tunangojea mpaka wakati ule tutafanya ile hesabu. Ni mpango ambao unaendelea, nimeutilia mkazo. Nilikuwa na mkutano wiki hii tu kujadili mambo haya kwa sababu yananikera. Ni mambo ambayo sipendi kuona Wakenya wanahangaika kwenye barabara, na tuko nchi huru. Lazima tuwapange waweze kurudi nyumbani, tuwape hali yao ya maisha ambayo ina heshima. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you so much, Honorable CS. That terminates our interaction with the CS. You may leave at your pleasure, Honorable CS. We will now move to the second CS to respond to question number 15 and number 25. Clerk, you may usher in the Honorable CS in charge of the treasury. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this morning of Dr. Godfrey Gitau Mwangi, the National Chairman of Former Councillors. He is in the Senate to follow proceedings and particularly response by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning on question number 015 by the Senator for Meru County, Senator Katuri Murungi, MP, in today's order paper on the delay in the implementation of the resolution of the Senate of 18th of October 2018 and the subsequent recommendations of the Interagency Task Force on the payment of honorarium and monthly pension to former councillors. Honorable Senators, the said Senate resolution arose out of a motion filed by the Senator for Kitui County, Senator Enoch Wambua CBS MP, on payment of a one-off honorarium and monthly pension for former councillors during the 12th Parliament, which was passed by the Senate on the 18th of October 2018. Honorable Senators, on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Mwangi and wish him a productive visit. Thank you. Now, the Honorable CS is in the House. We will straight away go to question number 15. Honorable CS, welcome to the Senate. Question number 15 is by the Honorable Senator for Meru County, Honorable Katuri Murungi. You may proceed, Honorable Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to ask this question on behalf of the former councillors who cut across the Republic of Kenya. And so, Mr. Speaker, the question I'm asking is question number 15 to the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning. And I want to thank my former colleague in the National Assembly for finding time to come to respond to the questions from the Kenyans. Number one, what are the reasons for the inordinate delay in the implementation of the resolution of the Senate of 18th October 2018 and the subsequent recommendations of the Interagency Task Force on payment of the honorarium and monthly pension for former councillors, despite the undertaking given by the National Treasury for a letter dated 28 September 2021 and addressed to the Senate that it will factor the payments in the ensuing financial year 2022-2023. Number B, Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status update on the establishment of the requisite legal and policy instruments to authorize, process, and facilitate payments? And if not, state the reasons for such delay and whether the eligible former councillors have been enrolled in the Inua Jamii program. And number C, when will the former councillors receive their full gratuity payments, and could the Cabinet Secretary state the measures put in place to ensure that for those who are deceased, the rightful beneficiaries are identified? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, I am grateful for the opportunity to appear before the Senate, conscious of your critical role in our nation's governance, ensuring accountability and representing the interests of the Kenyan people. My aim today is to provide you with a comprehensive response to your questions to achieve the best possible outcomes for our country. I was invited here actually to address two questions, and the first question has been asked, so I will straight away go to address the question that the Senator for Meru County has asked. That is question number 015, asking me to explain the following: that what are the reasons for the inordinate delay in the implementation of the resolution of the Senate of 18th October 2018 and the subsequent recommendations of the Interagency Task Force on payment of the honorarium and monthly pension to former councillors, despite the undertaking granted by the National Treasury via letter dated 28 September 2021 and addressed to the Senate that it would factor the payments in the following year's financial budget of 2022-23. Number B was for me to provide the status update on the establishment of the requisite legal and policy instruments to authorize, process, and facilitate payments, and if not, state the reasons for such delay and whether the eligible former councillors have been enrolled in the Inua Jamii program. Number C, which is the last one, was when will the former councillors receive their full gratuity payments, and could my office state the measures put in place to ensure that for those who are deceased, the rightful beneficiaries are identified. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to respond to the questions raised by the Senator for Meru County regarding the payment of honorarium and monthly pensions to former councillors as follows. Number one, regarding reasons for the delay in the implementation of the Senate resolution and task force recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the delay is in implementing the Senate resolution of 18th October 2018 and the recommendations of the Interagency Task Force on the payment of honoraria and pensions to former councillors has been primarily due to legal constraints. The Attorney General, who is the official government advisor on legal matters, in a legal opinion dated 8th May 2023, advised that there was no legal basis to support the proposed one-off honoraria payment of Kenya shillings 200,000 to former councillors who served for less than 20 years. The opinion also referred or referenced circular number 13894, issued by the then Ministry of Local Government, which limited pension or gratuity payments to councillors who had served continuously for 20 years or more as of 13th December 1993. Furthermore, the legal advisory highlighted the absence of a structured formula to determine benefits, given that councillors were not salaried or were not being paid salaries, but received allowances that varied across different regions. Consequently, implementing the proposed payment of 2,383,800,000 to about 11,919 former councillors lacks the necessary legal and policy foundation. The second question was the status of legal and policy instruments to authorize and facilitate the payments. Mr. Speaker, given the legal constraints that I've just mentioned, the National Treasury has considered an alternative approach through the Inua Jamii program, which is designed as a social protection initiative for elderly citizens. Former councillors who meet the eligibility criteria form part of the persons for inclusion in the program. The State Department for Social Protection, in collaboration with the relevant government agencies, including the National Treasury, has been verifying eligible registrants into the program. We shall collaborate with the State Department for Social Protection to identify the number of former councillors already enrolled and facilitating the registration of those who have not yet been enrolled. In addition, the National Retirement Benefits Policy, which was approved by the Cabinet in October 2023, also aims to provide a harmonized framework for administering retirement benefits across all sectors. This policy will guide future considerations on the retirement welfare of various categories of public service workers, including former councillors, by ensuring a structured and legally sound approach to retirement benefits. To further strengthen the legal framework, the government established a multi-agency committee on 17 September 2024 to review and align public service pension schemes with the Constitution of Kenya 2010. This committee is expected to provide recommendations on how best to address pension coverage for different categories of public service workers in a sustainable and legally compliant manner. On timelines for full gratuity payments and measures for identifying beneficiaries of deceased councillors, Mr. Speaker, in light of the legal challenges, the National Treasury will engage the Office of the Auditor General to conduct a forensic audit of the 328 former councillors who were initially identified as eligible for benefits. This audit will verify those who are still alive and identify rightful beneficiaries for those who are deceased. The findings of this audit will guide the next course of action in ensuring that only eligible former councillors or their rightful beneficiaries are considered under existing government social protection mechanisms. Mr. Speaker, the government remains committed to addressing the welfare of former councillors within the confines of the law and available resources. While the initial recommendations of the Senate and Task Force lacked legal backing, the alternative approach through Inua Jamii, coupled with the broader national retirement benefits policy, seeks to provide sustainable, and legally sound interventions for retired public servants. I submit.
Yes, Senator Kathuri, you have any supplementary question?
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much indeed. Honorable Speaker, this is a matter of national interest. And if you can indulge us, maybe you can give us a bit of time to ventilate on this matter, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this matter was canvassed during the last Senate. And I'm happy that the member who raised that matter is in this House. There is for the Senate. Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader. No, I wanted to catch the ear of the Speaker because for sure this is a matter of national interest, Honorable Speaker. And we want to, maybe if you can give us some indulgence, especially when asking the supplementary questions, because our former colleagues, councillors have really give an input to this republic. They actually laid the foundation where today we lay our legs on. So, Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, maybe the senators who might be interested, you can give us some leeway to really ask the right questions because those councillors have no other forum except this House, especially the Senate, so that we can canvass this matter. And Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Dr. Mwangi for availing his time also to appear here on behalf of almost 1,500 councillors as their chairman. So, Mr. Speaker, you can see the interest that this matter has. And therefore, first of all, I want to inform the CS that the payment of these councillors was an undertaking by Honorable Ambassador Ukula, who was the CS, National Treasury and Planning. And this matter came through this House, Mr. Speaker. What we are trying to unlock today is the resolution of the Senate on the 18th of October 2018. When this matter was canvassed here, the matter was raised by the one and only the Senator for Kitui, who is, by God's grace, he is present in this House.
Senator Kathuri, just proceed to ask your supplementary question. Because
So,
the
Mr.
dashboard is
Speaker,
full here, and the more you...
It is the first time we're hearing that there was another legal opinion which was sought with the AG, and the AG gave an opinion that there was no legal basis for payment of this honorarium or the pensions to these councillors, Mr. Speaker. That was last year, 2023. So from the time this matter was canvassed up to the 2023 legal issue that the AG raised, we don't know what happened and who is this trying to frustrate the councillors. Mr. Speaker, it is actually, if there is no legal basis, it is the AG who should work tirelessly to ensure that we have a legal framework to give them their pension or whatever they worked for. So, Mr. Speaker, the CS, I don't want my former colleague to go into this route. That is one who has not been able to pay the councillors. He has been unable
Senator
to
Kathuri.
pay. Okay.
Senator for Meru, Senator Kathuri. What is your question to the Honorable CS?
My question is, Mr. Speaker, is that I have fully stated my stand that it is the first time again this matter is arising. Even the chairman is not aware about the legal opinion by the AG. I don't know who sneaks these opinions so that these people don't get a very little money, less than even 200 million, Mr. Speaker, sir. This country is ashaming itself. These are former leaders who really need support. They don't have even money to pay for SHA. Because I met the former councillors from here. Very old ones, they have even no 300 shillings to pay for SHA. And then there is a group somewhere which is frustrating them not to pay them 200,000 per councillor, those who served for less than 3 terms. So, Mr. Speaker, my question is to reform back the treasury. We don't need that legal opinion. It can be quashed again by this House, Mr. Speaker. So these Wazee can get their pension, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, that is why, this matter is not about the questions, but
So,
needed to seek.
Senator Fomero, with all that, what are you asking the Honorable
The
CS?
CS to set aside that legal opinion and pay the councillors without further delay. That
So your
is,
question is, could the Honorable CS set aside,
set
disregard
aside, yes, he set aside that
the legal
opinion.
opinion and proceed to pay? Is that your
And,
question?
and if he cannot be able to set aside, he can still request the AG through Treasury. He has that power.
Good.
To request the AG to set aside that opinion or to come up with a legal framework that will enhance the payment of the pension and honorarium to the former councillors, Mr. Speaker.
So Honorable CS, there are two supplementary questions from the Honorable Kathuri. One, are you in a position to set aside the legal opinion? Secondly, if not, can the AG come up with a legal framework within which the former councillors can be paid their money? Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Am I able to set aside the legal opinion of the Attorney General? The answer is no, I don't have that capacity. The Attorney General is actually the legal advisor to the government. And once she has given the opinion, or he has given the opinion, then that opinion, I cannot set it aside. The other issue before us is whether we need to have a legal framework to pay the councillors or former councillors. The answer is yes. I believe legal opinions are based on legal provisions. And so the Attorney General must have been informed by clear foundation of the law. So the people with the mandate to bring a legislative framework through which councillors can be paid is actually this House. What my advice would be is for Senator Kathuri to make a provision in law that would allow these former councillors to be paid. It's not that I am not interested in supporting these councillors. Many of them come from my place. I know them personally, and I've even met them during my times in politics, and they have complained, and I know what they go through. But for us to be able to pay these former councillors gratuity or pension, there is need for legal framework. Remember, Mr. Speaker, we even have cases of former members of parliament whom I personally made an attempt to provide a legal framework through which they could be paid. And I brought a bill in parliament, which bill was passed, and the president refused to assent to it. But this was in realization that there was no legal framework to pay former MPs. There cannot be lack of legal framework to pay former MPs, which made us to attempt to amend the law, and yet there is a legal framework to pay former councillors. To be honest, if these former councillors have to be paid, there must be change of the law. We all know that even our constitution talks about any money that is paid to anybody who is appearing like a public officer, like I believe councillors would appear, needs to go, that needs to be processed through SRC. But lastly, I want to say that, these councillors were not even drawing a salary. So you don't even know if you are to pay them. You are basing it on what? And the motion by the Senate was a motion. Motion remains an intent. It doesn't have the legal basis to occasion withdrawal of public funds. So the motion remains motion. If it was a bill passed by the House, then that becomes legally binding. But where we are, there is an intention to pay councillors, former councillors, but we lack the legal framework. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Enoch. What guidance are you seeking, Senator, for Kakamega?
Mr. Speaker, I have listened very painfully the difficulty the minister appears to be having. But listening to it and reading it together, and listening to it and reading Article 94 of the Constitution, which speaks to the role of Parliament, It says, Mr. Speaker, in 94.5, that no person or body other than Parliament has the power to make a provision having the force of law in Kenya except under the authority conferred by this constitution. Mr. Speaker, we have not come to Nairobi in this house to speak in vain. We do so under the provision of this constitution, which I have read, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is the minister suggesting that the Attorney General has the power to veto Parliament? This Parliament made a resolution.
Senator Boni, I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question.
No, I was asking for interpretation.
Senator Enoch,
Mr. Speaker, I wanted
I
you
can
to
see
guide
your
us.
name on the dashboard. I'll give you an opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, clearly for my brother, my friend, my colleague, Waziri Bandi, the shoe is clearly on the other foot. That's very clear. The shoe is on the other foot. Mr. Speaker, just riding on what Senator Alwale is trying to ask, can Parliament, Mr. Speaker, can this Senate, your Senate that you preside over, Mr. Speaker, can it legislate in vain? Is it possible that senators will sit here, pass resolutions, and they just talk show, the AG seated in an office somewhere decides, no, this is not good enough? Mr. Speaker, the question is, so when the minister received that advisory opinion from the AG, when did he write to you, Mr. Speaker, to tell you that we have received, you made a resolution on this date, we have received an advisory opinion from the AG on this day, and so please act accordingly? Mr. Speaker, I will not belabor the point. The CS fought with me on this matter when he was pushing the agenda of former members of the National Assembly to be compensated. And in front of the Speaker, as I go to sit down, I have a message for the CS from one former member of Parliament from Kitui East, Honorable Mweo. He is still seated waiting for the day that this administration will live up to its word, that the things that had been done wrongly will be done right and people will get their rights under this administration. The Speaker, can your house legislate in vain?
So is that the question to me or to the Honorable CS?
The Speaker, is just a clever way of getting you to be agitated because somebody is trying to say that can sit on that chair, preside over a motion, a resolution, the Speaker, push ministries to sit down and come up with a solution to a problem, and then one person, just a stroke of the pen, says all that we have done is in vain. The question is to the CS, can this house, can any house of Parliament legislate in vain?
Senator, to inform who, Honorable? Whom do you want to inform?
Actually, it's the House.
Proceed.
Mr. Honorable Speaker, the CS has not given the right answer because, number one, this was not a motion, Honorable CS. A task force was formed, which included the Ministry of National Treasury and Planning, the Ministry of Devolution and ASAL, and the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. So, Mr. Speaker, an interagency task force on payment of honorarium and monthly pension to former councillors was formed so that also to go and negotiate with them. And they negotiated and they agreed on what should be paid. The interagency task force gave proposals and the three CSs appended their signatures in this report that I will table to this House. Yeah. So the three CSs who appended signatures to the amount of money that was be paid to the councillors are: one, CS, National Treasury and Planning; number two, that was Ambassador Ukula Tan; number two, Honorable Eugene Wamarwa, who was the CS then of Ministry of Devolution and ASAL; and Honorable Simon Chelugui, who was the CS Minister of Labor and Social Protection. So it is a negotiated package and agreement which was to be provided. And they understand in the year 2022-2023, that is when their monies were to be put into the budget. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not talking of a motion, but a resolution which was communicated now to the clerk of the Senate, from National Treasury and Planning to the clerk of the Senate, and advising the Senate what the interagency task force agreed. And this is a property of the Senate, Mr. Speaker. So we are not talking of a motion passed by the House. It is a resolution from an interministerial task force. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to table this resolution to the Senate, so that as we discuss, this matter is not going to be discussed, and then we say today we are finished with the CS, but we must review this decision, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me all these indulgences, Honorable Speaker.
Table. Senator from Mombasa. Honorable CS, just note down the questions. You respond them at one go.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Nakumbuka mwaka jana wakati kwa kamati ya fedha ya bunge hili, waziri wa zamani wa fedha na hazina alikuja mbele ya komiti wakati tunajadili budget policy statement, na akakomiti kwamba hizo pesa ambazo watakana kulipwa madiwani wa zamani zitawekwa katika bajeti ya mwaka 2023, 24, 25. Sasa je, ni sawa mawaziri waje katika bunge hili na kamati zake kutoa maelezo ama kutoa majibu ambayo hayalingani? Kwa sababu Profesa Njuguna Ndung'u alikuwa ni waziri wa fedha na hazina kuu ya serikali hii ya Kenya Kwanza. Leo tuko na waziri Mbadi. Je, ni sawa mawaziri kuja na majibu tofauti katika bunge hili? Leo wanakuja wanasema hivi, kesho wanakuja wanasema vile. Asante.
Senator Boni.
Mr. Speaker, our brother Juan Bombadi is a very experienced parliamentarian, and he knows that Parliament does not speak in vain. I leave that to his conscience. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, the former councillors of Nandi County, Uasin Gishu County, and Kakamega County came to see me formally, and they told me that the president had met them and made a commitment just before he won the election that he would ensure this promise by the Jubilee government would be implemented by the, that interministerial was during the Jubilee government, that he was aware of that task force and that decision he would implement if elected. Since God has been very kind, President Ruto is now the president, and he committed himself to these councillors. Can the minister undertake, as the financial advisor to the president, to go and make the necessary consultations so that the promise of the president and the expectations of the former councillors converge? We pay our old people. After all, if we pay this 200 million, it's a form of financial stimulus. They will spend the money in public and the economy will be vibrant in their villages, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, ningependa kufahamu kutoka kwa waziri wa fedha. Je, ni lini jambo ambalo walizungumzia na wakakubaliana kama waziri wa fedha, waziri wa kazi, labor, na pia there were three of them, walikuwa watatu, na waziri wa ugatuzi wakakubaliana kweli ya kwamba wanakwenda kusubmit ama kupeana cabinet memo ili pesa ambayo ilikuwa bilioni 2,600,816 iweze kuwekwa katika bajeti ya mwaka wa 2023 na 24 ili iweze kuwalipa councillors wa zamani ambayo walikuwa 11,909 na pia milioni 218 iweze kulipa councillors ambayo walifanya kazi zaidi ya term 3. Ni lini, je, ni lini mambo ilibadilika ambaye katika seneti hii? Mheshimiwa, najaribu kuongea Kiswahili kabisa ndio councillors waweze kuelewa. Ni lini hiyo ilibadilika ambaye seneti hii inaweza pronounce itself, sijui inaitwaje kwa Kiswahili, kujieleza kupitia namna mbili. Ya kwanza ni wakuwa na ile mkataba motion, ya pili ni wakipitisha sheria. Seneti hii ilipitisha mkataba ikasema ya kwamba hawa former councillors ambayo walikuwa ni 11,400 waweze kulipwa pesa. Tukazungumza, tukapiga mikutano hapa. Waziri wa fedha ambaye ndiye alikuwa kabla ya rafiki yangu Mbadi kuja, alikuja katika kamati ya leba. Alipotoka hapa, inakumbuka vizuri sana, ilikuwa Aprili tarehe 23. Tarehe 23 akatueleza ya kwamba hao wenyewe wamekubaliana wanakwenda submit cabinet memo ili hii pesa iwekwe kwenye bajeti. Je, ningependa kujua hii pesa iliwekwa kwa bajeti alafu ikarudi kaondolewa kwa sababu hawa ni watu ambao wamezeeka, hawana faida. Na ukijaribu kuangalia ni kwamba hao ndio wamefanya tuje hapa. Hao ndio walitengeneza. Kama si hao, ugatuzi ingeweza kuja. So, Mheshimiwa Speaker, ningependa kujua katika kweli ni lini jambo hili lilibadilika. Ya pili, nikienda kumalizia,
Honorable
Mheshimiwa,
you're entitled to only one supplementary question.
Hiyo ni swali
our
moja.
order paper. No, under our standing orders.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, hiyo ni swali moja, swali ndio ngumu. Naomba tu nikubalie kwa sababu kama ningekuwa naeleza na Kizungu ingekuwa imeflow vizuri.
Conclude.
Mheshimiwa Mbadi ametueleza ya kwamba alipata ujumbe kutoka kwenye Attorney General ya kwamba hii jambo halifai kufanywa sheria. Mimi nauliza, wakati ile Mheshimiwa Ndongo alikuja kwenye kamati ya kazi ya leba, hakuwa amezungumza na huyo Attorney General kumweleza kwamba mimi sasa nakwenda kule nishawishi, na badala kabla hawajapeleka hii mkataba wao katika cabinet, kwa sababu hawa wenyewe walisema wakuwa watatu, 3 cabinet secretaries watapeleka joint memo, cabinet memo ndio hiyo hela iwekwe kwenye kwa nini kwenye bajeti. Ni lini hii ilibadilika? Ama ni ile mchezo ya paka na panya ambaye inakimbia hivi, leo tunasema tunapatia hawa, lakini kwa sababu hawana ile siasa, political clout, wanatupwa nje. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ningependa kujua kwa sababu maisha ya hawa former councillors ni maisha ambaye lazima tuwapiganie, kwa sababu leo hii Mheshimiwa Mbadi akisema ati tunabadilisha tuweke kama Inua Jamii, hiyo itakuwa ni discrimination. Kweli unawezaje kusema na Inua Jamii ya councillor nampa 1,200 na pia naenda kuinua jamii ya baba ya Ledamo unampatia shilingi 2,000? Hiyo kweli inawezekana? Hiyo kweli hiyo ni ungwana? Asante.
Now, honorable senators, allow the honorable CS to respond, because in his response, I believe he may even address some of the issues that are yet to be raised. Honorable CS, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to state categorically that it's not in my interest to deny former councillors what is rightfully theirs. What I'm emphasizing on is, yes, it is desirable to pay these former councillors. Many of them are suffering, having served this country and having been in public offices and respected personalities in their right in this country. But we must do it within the law. Now, I have been asked by Senator Wambua a few questions, I think about two. One, whether the House can act in vain. My answer is no. The House should not act in vain. Did we write to the Speaker?
Senator Eddy and Senator Fogarisha kindly.
Did my office write to the Speaker on this matter or the opinion of the Attorney General? Unfortunately, I don't think we did. We didn't write to inform the Speaker. So the question here that has been asked is, there was a task force that was set up and the resolution of the House. First of all, let me start with the task force. Is the report of the task force binding? My understanding is no, it is not. Why? Because the Constitution, which Senator Boni Alwale mentioned, provision number 94, or Article 94(5), says no person or body, including task forces, other than Parliament, has the power to make provision having the force of the law in Kenya, except under authority conferred by this Constitution or by legislation. I am yet to see the provision in our Constitution or any written law passed by this Parliament which has authorized a task force formed to approve payment to former councillors. If there is that provision, I would obey and pay. Make provision in our budget and pay, but there is none. So that task force remains a task force. Its report should be implemented procedurally, which has not. So up to now, there is no, out of the task force, which should have, a legislation should have flown automatically from the task force report to now anchor it in law, and that has not been done. Now, on a question by Senator Faki, why I have not respected or obeyed what former CS is committed to do. Unfortunately, I want to report to the Senate that yes, my predecessor, Honorable Yatani, or even Honorable Ndungu, probably made a commitment, but they didn't pay. The person who is paying now is myself. I cannot pay unless backed by the law. Because when now it will raise issues, I am the one accountable. I'm the one responsible. I cannot hide behind people who made commitments or intentions and didn't pay. So the paymaster now is myself. If they paid, I would have come here to report that they paid, but they didn't pay. And they left it for me to pay, and I'm checking the legal framework and I don't see it. A question was asked about the Attorney General's powers. My reading of Article 156 is this, that the Attorney General is the principal legal advisor to the government. Now, being the principal legal advisor, I take his advice or her advice very seriously. And the Attorney General gave advice on 8th of May 2023 on this, and that advice has not been vacated or changed. Senator Boni Alwale has asked me about, again, Parliament legislating in vain. I want to say again, Parliament cannot legislate in vain. The only thing that I said is, and we have been in this house with Senator Boni Alwale for a while, we know the power and the force that a motion has and a bill, an act of Parliament. A motion usually, and by the way, this has been the legislative practice, that if you want a bill to pass easily, you craft it in a motion. That motion is debated, and once you succeed with the motion, then you follow through by generating a bill to actualize your motion. How I wish that Senator Wambua, who raised this matter, brought it to the House through a motion, followed through by bringing a legislation to anchor whatever the House resolved into law to allow for payment. If that is done, I will definitely obey the legal framework. As to the president's commitment to pay the councillors, I want to again read Article 94 of the Constitution, that no person, and there is no exclusion here, no person or body, whether president or anybody else, other than Parliament, has the power to make provision having the force of law in Kenya, except under authority conferred by the Constitution or by legislation. I am yet to see where power has been given to the president to give authority for payment that is not anchored in law. So what I would advise is if the president initiate through the executive a legislative proposal which would now give me the legal basis upon which this payment can be made, I will obey. Senator Lekina, Senator for Narok County, since when did we start? In fact, it was in Kiswahili, but I'm trying to translate it into English, that an agreement by 3 CSs be changed. I am not changing the task force report. What I'm saying is that task force report has made recommendations. Those recommendations now should be anchored in law to allow me to make payment to former councillors. And when did this change? It has not changed. The task force recommendation still stands, but we have to now actualize it. Did Professor Njuguna Ndungu speak to the Attorney General before coming before the Senate? I wish I knew. I have not consulted him to know whether he did, but I thought he must have consulted, because for the Attorney General to give opinion on 8th of May 2023, that opinion must have been sought from the National Treasury. And the CS then was Professor Njuguna Ndungu. So I am very sure he must have, in one way, communicated with the Attorney General. On the Inua Jamii, I was not saying that we pay the former councillors this gratuity, pension or honorarium through Inua Jamii. Is that we are working with the line ministry to make sure that these former councillors, those who deserve to be enrolled under Inua Jamii program, are enrolled in the normal way to get support like any other qualified Kenyans, including those who have not served as councillors. Thank you.
Now, honorable senators, we need to make progress on this very weighty matter. And I know that if I'm to give an opportunity to any of you, there will be no bigger departure from what has already been said by the senators who've spoken before. Now, you will note that there is a willingness to pay from the executive, right from the president to the ministry. The biggest obstacle that has been observed from the response by the Honorable CS is lack of legal framework. And therefore, Honorable Senators, allow me to, pursuant to Standing Order number 1, refer this matter to the Committee of Labor, working together with the Ministry of Finance and the Office of the Attorney General, within 60 days to come up with a legal framework within which we can actualize the recommendations of the task force so that the councillors are paid their due. If that's fine favor, we will rest it at that. So, Honorable CS, this matter has now been referred to the Labour Committee, which will work with you and the Office of the Attorney General to come up with a legal framework within which the former councillors can get their dues. We'll leave it at that. We will now move to the second question directed to, yes.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for your guidance, and I'm okay with your guidance. And I've realized the lacuna where it is. So, Mr. Speaker, I was asking, is it possible also to include the Committee on Budget and Finance? Because it is very critical on this matter. That is the committee that can also be able to get CS Mbandi anytime they want to meet him. Otherwise, the Labour does not know the corners of Treasury more than the Committee on Budget and Finance. And also it is a finance matter, Honorable Speaker, so it is better also that committee to be involved.
Very well. In fact, 3 committees will work together with the CS Treasury and the Office of the Attorney General, the Labour Committee, JLAC, and Finance and Budget. And we need that report to be laid before the Senate within 60 days. The earlier, the better. We move to the second question. Question number 25. Senator Boni, proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 25 as in the order paper. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate the Minister for the candid manner in which he has handled this matter of gross national importance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, could the Minister provide a list of programs in Kenya relating to education, food security, governance that were being implemented by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, at the time of freezing of foreign assistance from the United States of America? B, Mr. Speaker, what is the total funding requirement for each of the said programs, and could the Cabinet Secretary specify the amount of funds that USAID was projected to provide in the financial year 2024-25? C, what interim measures has the government put in place to address the funding gap that has emerged as a result of the freeze of foreign assistance from the US to ensure continuity of the critical services? And finally, D, could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the government's long-term plans to reduce reliance on foreign aid and to ensure sustainability in financing for the critical programs in sectors such as education, health, food security, and governance? I thank you.
Cabinet Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to reciprocate the magnanimity of Senator Boni Halwale by saying that I also appreciate the Senator for being proactive in this matter, not to wait until there are challenges out of this freeze of funding to now ask questions, being proactive and asking well in advance. Since the senators read the question, I don't want to read the question again, but it's question number 025. And this is my response, Mr. Speaker and the honorable members. Mr. Speaker and honorable senators, first and foremost, allow me to acknowledge the invaluable support from the government of the United States of America to the people of Kenya for over 6 decades. We enjoy cordial and enduring partnership between the United States and Kenya that has led to healthy collaboration in a wide range of initiatives, such as access to education, improving quality health care through nutrition, family planning, and maternal and child health, including malaria, tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS, and strengthening of healthcare system. Support for economic growth through trade, agriculture, and infrastructure initiatives. Fostering democracy governance, and conflict interventions that directly impact the lives of millions of Kenyans. So cognizant of the executive order titled Reevaluating and Realigning United States Foreign Aid, issued ordering a 90-day pause on all U.S. foreign development assistance programs to conduct a review, the National Treasury wishes the Senate to note the following: that the U.S. government provides foreign aid primarily in grants form to Kenya using several U.S. government agencies whom we have existing development cooperation framework with, including U.S. Department of State, U.S. Agency for International Development, or what is known as USAID, U.S. Trade Development Agency, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the United States President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, Development Finance Corporation, and the U.S. African Development Foundation. We signed the Development Cooperation Framework Agreements, DCFA, with USAID on the 8th of December 2019. The initial contribution was $50,016,204, but this has since been increased to $1,695,978,754, which is equivalent to 220 million, to Kenya shillings 220 billion 477,238,020. So the DCFA is valid up to 30th of September 2028. Mr. Speaker, with those highlights, now I wish to respond to the question number 25 by the Senator for Kakamega County, Senator Boni Alwale, as follows. On the question of could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of all programs in Kenya relating to education, food security, and governance that were being implemented by the United States Agency for International Development at the time of freezing of the foreign assistance to the United States of America. I wish to state, Honorable Speaker, that attached to my written response is the list of the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID funded programs in Kenya relating to education, food security, and governance, which are appended as Annex number 1. And under education, if you go to that annex, it's page 14, my submission. I hope all members have it, or the members who have this response from me have them. Under education, there is $22.3 million, and I've highlighted where this money would be spent: training of teachers to enhance reading instructions, providing support to Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Maybe I continue. Under education, I said that there is 22.3 million US dollars, and just giving examples of where this money would have been spent or would be spent is improving early grade literacy across public primary schools. I want to single out that there was there was support for to public TVETs in Kilifi, Mombasa, Nakuru, and Machakos to align training to industry needs, providing scholarship to youth to attend TVETs, and support for the newly established Open University of Kenya to build systems for instructional delivery and establish partnership with private sector and universities in the US and globally. So that is those are the areas where the education money was going to. Under governance, a number of issues being dealt with, but the amount that was available for this was 8.6 million USD. Under food security, it was a little higher, 128 million, and that is equivalent of 16.5 billion shillings. This was supporting a number of NGOs, supporting programs, including Dadaab and Kakuma refugee camps, supporting improved farming practices, supporting county governments, NGOs, and UN agencies, and especially in ASAL areas, in providing foods and relief to over 2.5 million people. So, and the details are there, Mr. Speaker. The second question, what is the total funding requirement for each of the said programs, and could the Cabinet Secretary specify the amount of funds that you said was projected to provide in the year 2024-2025 financial year? Now, the amount for the said programs is approximately the program that I highlighted: food, governance, and education. Those ones, the said programs is approximately 158.9 million US dollars, equivalent of about 20 billion Kenya shillings, while the total assistance, including health and the others, is approximately US dollars 405.4 million, which is about Kenya shillings 52 billion. For the financial year 24-25, from USAID, which, as I've indicated, includes other sectors such as health, economic growth, water, and environment. Now, Honorable Speaker, it's important to note that while official government assistance, or what is known as ODA, from USAID is aligned to our medium-term plan and supplement government investments and largely benefits the people of Kenya. USAID contracts implementing partners, that is both international and local, are entities who bear the fiduciary responsibility, because this funding is implemented by implementing partners. The money, as I will state, does not come to our budget. Therefore, USAID support is not reflected in the budget. The National Treasury plays a subsidiary role in facilitating tax exemptions. So that is something worth noting, that this has been off-budget financing from USAID. However, provides very critical services. Now, what interim measures has the government put in place to address the funding gap that has emerged as a result of the freeze of foreign assistance from the USA to ensure continuity of critical services? My response is as follows. Regarding the interim measures to address the funding gaps resulting from the freeze of foreign assistance from the USA, the government has taken the following steps to ensure the continuity of critical services. With the affected state departments, we are conducting a review of our existing budget allocations to prioritize funding for essential services in sectors such as health, education, governance, and food security to be included in the budget estimates supplementary 3 if it becomes very necessary, because if this funding stops abruptly and there are critical areas, we cannot wait for the 2025-2026 budget. Likewise, county governments are also expected to act accordingly to ensure uninterrupted service delivery for devolved functions. We are also engaging with other development partners to explore opportunities for additional funding and technical assistance to plug the gap. For instance, the Universal Healthcare Agenda reforms under the Social Health Authority, SHA, vulnerable populations will gain access to a broad spectrum of benefits, including screening, dialysis, kidney transplants, essential medications, and vital medical equipment, and plug the gap by some of the interventions that were being performed by USAID. The other question was that could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the government's long-term plans to reduce reliance on foreign aid and to ensure sustainable financing for critical programs in sectors such as education, health, food security, and governance? And this is my response, Mr. Speaker. Like you have observed, this administrative action has actually exposed our vulnerabilities and calls for concerted efforts to address them to ensure Kenyan self-reliance. Our Vision 2030 overarching goal is to transform Kenya into a newly industrializing middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all Kenyans or citizens. The journey to self-reliance requires broad-based economic development. The government is implementing yeah, nirudie. The journey to self-reliance requires broad-based economic development. And the government is implementing policies, programs, projects, and interventions in the bottom-up economic transformation agenda to enhance agricultural transformation, support macro, small, and medium enterprises, provide affordable housing and settlement, achieve universal health care, and support growth of digital superhighway and creative economy for job creation. Mr. Speaker, in this year's budget policy statement, which is titled Consolidating Gains and a Bottom-up Economic Transformation Agenda for Inclusive Green Growth, we have outlined the fiscal consolidation measures to reduce public debt vulnerabilities while providing fiscal space to deliver essential public goods and services. Fiscal consolidation will be supported by concerted expenditure rationalization and revenue mobilization efforts. This will bring public debt on downwards path, consistent with Kenya's debt anchor. To boost revenue, emphasis will be placed on a combination of tax administrative and tax policy reforms that include strengthening tax administration for enhanced compliance through expansion of the tax base, minimizing tax expenditures, leveraging on technology to revolutionize tax processes, sealing revenue loopholes, and enhancing the efficiency of tax system, and focusing on non-tax revenues that ministries, departments, and agencies can raise through the services they offer to the public. The government will also sustain efforts to strengthen accountability, transparency, and a revenue mobilization path guided by the medium-term revenue strategy that makes tax regime more efficient, equitable, and progressive. These deliberate efforts will be put in place to strike a right balance between the need to create a stronger and more reliable revenue stream and the need to protect the critical masses who have been grossly affected by the prevailing macroeconomic shocks. To strengthen expenditure control and improve efficiency and effectiveness in public spending, the government will rationalize and reduce non-essential expenditure, roll out an end-to-end e-procurement system to maximize value for money, and increase transparency in procurement. Operationalize the public investment management information system to automate public investment management process, revamp the public service pension administration through digitization and re-engineering of the pension management system, and expedite governance reforms targeting state corporations. To strengthen public finance management, the government will fast-track the process of transitioning from cash basis to accrual basis of accounting to improve cash management and enhance financial and fiscal reporting, and entrench the adopted zero-based budgeting approach while finalizing the financial year 2025-26 budget estimate to reorient our budgeting and expenditure framework. The government will also operationalize the asset and inventory management modules in our IFMIS for all MDS, and this will enable the government to have full visibility of all assets and inventory and facilitate optimal assets utilization and ensure idle and unserviceable assets are disposed in conformity with existing legal requirements. I want to add that most of these measures that I've already put here, Mr. Speaker, many of them are at their advanced stages of implementation. For example, the case of e-procurement, we are onboarding almost all MDS by the beginning of next month, and we are doing a test run all the way to June 30th, and by July 1st, all MDAs, including county government, should be all onboarded into e-procurement system to make efficient, effective our procurement system and realized economy in the procurement. The case of actuarial accounting, already my committee is implementing it, which is headed by my PS. I delegated that to him and is doing an excellent job. even in terms of inventory and investment management. So all these measures that I've pointed out here are already at advanced stages of implementation. They are just not thoughts, not wish list. They are not intentions. We are actualizing them. Now, to crowd in private sector in the provision of public services, the government will scale up use of public-private partnerships, framework for commercially viable projects. I know PPP has actually been scandalized. We are trying to revamp it and re-engineer it and rebrand it so that Kenyans may appreciate the PPP as an alternative to financing major infrastructural development, which would reduce pressure on our fiscal space. The government is also piloting a new human resource management system, which will be rolled out to all national government ministries and departments, as well as all county governments, in order to improve the management of the wage bill, including statutory payroll deductions. In view of the constrained fiscal environment, prioritization during resource allocation will be critical in ensuring low priority expenditures are dropped or deferred to give way to high priority service delivery programs. Ministries, departments, and agencies are therefore required to reevaluate all the existing or planned activities, projects, and programs to be funded in financial year 25-26 and in the medium-term budget. Sector working groups are required to eliminate wasteful expenditures and pursue priorities which are aimed at safeguarding livelihoods, creating jobs, reviving businesses, and economic recovery. I want to add that we have already put a zero-based budgeting model into the IFMIS for this budget that we are just processing at the moment. So sector working groups should also ensure that all expenditure items in the financial year 25-26 budget are justified, and emphasis is placed on allocating the limited resources based on program efficiency and requirement than incremental budgeting. Before I finish, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to point out that the day before yesterday, I actually had a meeting with the Charge d'Affaires of the United States in Kenya. And this is what I want to add to the response that I've just given. We discussed at length, and it is clear, as I said, that US has been giving us support directly through implementing partners, not through the budgetary support. The programs out of this executive order, which have been running in this country, were about 100. With this executive order, the programs may reduce only to 15. So these are the areas that are going to be saved from the discussion I had with them, and I requested him to give me a write-up on what the impact of this executive order is, including areas that are not going to be affected, and he stated that life-saving interventions will not be affected. Emergencies like infectious diseases, e.g. Ebola, those ones will not be affected in terms of fund cuts. Emergency food assistance will also be preserved or not affected or saved. And finally, our mission in Haiti through our police force will also be supported still. So the executive order does not affect those areas. The life-saving interventions, emergency food assistance, and our mission in Haiti, those ones will still continue to enjoy the US funding. So, Mr. Speaker, even as we pursue these risk mitigating measures, we remain hopeful that we shall continue strengthening our bilateral ties with the US, notwithstanding of the outcome of the 90-day review on foreign aid. We discussed at length with the team from the US Embassy, and they have also indicated areas where they still want to continue cooperating with us, and they re-emphasized that the foreign policy around Kenya is still intact and remains intact. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I submit.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Senators, due to time, I will not be taking any supplementary questions except from Boni Kalwale. You can ask one supplementary question if you're still not satisfied with the response.
Mike, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I am satisfied with the answer that has been given by the minister, and I want to regret on behalf of the people of Kakamega, Mombasa, Nakuru, Kilifi, and Isiolo that 1.1 billion shillings, which was earmarked for promoting accountability in delivery of services in those counties and reducing fraud and wastage and abuse of resources in the health sector, has fallen on its face. Mr. Speaker, because of where we are, I want to draw the attention of the minister to page 9 of his answer, bullet 8.3, where you have mentioned the issue of the Social Health Authority. Mr. Minister, since you're trying to look for ways of bridging the gap, the universal health, where it has succeeded elsewhere in the world, the funding model is clearly based on what comes from the national treasury, plus what they realize from the contributions for members who subscribe into the program for insurance, and finally, an element of out-of-pocket. Could you clarify to the country, Mr. Minister, that the current funding model of SHA does not factor in any money from the national treasury? Given, Mr. Minister, that in your budget you have 134.5 billion shillings thereabout to the Ministry of Health, which remains at Afya, which is going to remain at Afya House, can I plead on behalf of the Kenyans that that 134 billion shillings that is remaining at Afya House, you should take upwards of 50%, 80%, 60%, and take it into share so that it can be the national government's contribution to cushion the program, because the noise I'm hearing across the country, Minister, is about funding. People are happy about SHA, but the funding doesn't appear to be sustainable. Can you undertake to go and learn and borrow from the way it is done in other countries, the UK included, on how universal health care is funded? I'm afraid, Minister, the
Senator
noise
Boni.
we're hearing is not about to come to an end. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator
Thank
Boni.
you,
Cabinet
Mr. Speaker.
Secretary, please respond.
Thank you.
Proceed, Cabinet Secretary. Senator Cherargei, I did. Yes, so I've told you we have run out of time. There's another Cabinet Secretary waiting. What questions? The question has been answered. This is a supplementary question. Senator Cherargei, we are not going to engage each other in a verbal exchange. Cabinet Secretary, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Cherargei, that is enough. We have run. Let the Cabinet Secretary reply, please. No. No. Allow the Cabinet Secretary to respond. Cabinet Secretary, please respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just to quickly address the two issues that Senator Boni Aluale has raised. On his regrets, I agree that funding issues like advocacy and support on fight against corruption will be affected, certainly. And we may not have enough resources to support such programs, but it is regrettable because we really need accountability in the country. So I agree with Senator Aluale on that. Secondly, on the issue of universal health cover, again, I want to agree with Senator Boni Aluale that this program is contentious everywhere in the world. There's no country that I know of which has implemented universal health coverage without issues around it, either political, people who feel it should not be implemented, especially in developed democracies, or it is issues around how to implement it. But again, as a country, I think in manifestos of major political parties, we promised universal health coverage, but we must implement it properly. The issues around SHA is not that SHA is not right. It is the good thing, is the right thing to do, but the issues around it is, are we doing it properly? So this is the question that we need to do. So what am I going to do from the Treasury perspective? From the Treasury, I'm going to insist on rationalization of our budget to put money where it is needed. I just want to tell Senator Luale that it is the Treasury has supported SHA. It's not true that we haven't supported. Even in the current supplementary 2, we have allocation of 6 billion to support SHA, 3 billion to support primary health care, and another 3 billion to support critical care, health care. By the way, it may interest members to understand also from the information I have is that the critical healthcare was not being provided under NHIF, but under SHA, the government has insisted we must provide it, and we must make resources available. We will, apart from the deductions from members, which is basically insurance, it is not actually expenditure. The money that is collected from Kenyans, if you take the best case scenario that no Kenyan falls sick, that money should not be spent, it should remain there. So it's not an expenditure. That is why when you look at our fiscal framework, we have removed the SHA allocation, the 73 billion from the fiscal framework, because it is not an expenditure. But the government must also put in money to support healthcare in the country. So you will see in the budget our allocation to support this health program, because it is critical, we must do it. And I hope and I believe that the line ministry will do justice to Kenyans by making this system work, make it more efficient and make it more accountable. The problems which are there were bound also to be there, because any new thing must have challenges. But those challenges must be dealt with within a period of time so that the system works. We cannot afford to lose this. We cannot afford to lose this system. This system is the best for this country, especially with these challenges around some of the health programs that were being supported by USAID. We need a system that caters for the vulnerable of the society. And so mine was, Mr. Speaker, just largely to agree with Honorable Aluale, and I've taken note of your suggestion and advice to my ministry on how to deal with the funding to the health ministry. I will act accordingly.
Thank you very much, Cabinet Secretary. We shall give you leave now. Wish you all the best in the hard task ahead. And probably we'll see you next time you're in this house to ask you more questions. Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Yes, Senator Cherargei. Give Senator Cherargei the mic.
Mr. Speaker, looking at the number of questions that is there, it is good to advise some of us, because we have been sitting since morning, whether now that the Minister of Interior is coming and he has a lot of more than 10 questions, it is good to guide us early that if there will be no space for supplementary question, it's good to advise the House, so that some of us don't have to wait. If we will not get a chance, then why did we put at the standing order that supplementary questions will be provided? In fact, the standing order should only allow the people who are asking the questions to ask the question. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's unfair. Members come here at 9:30, we sit through, we try to ask further supplementary questions, or even to assist in the guidance of the House, Mr. Speaker. We are not being given the chance. I'm not saying not only me, but a number of colleagues who have sat here since morning, Mr. Speaker. So looking at the next minister, he has almost more than 10 questions, and looking at even if, Speaker, even if you are to indulge the House to rise at 1:15, it will not be sufficient. So is it understanding order number one that you guide, or the questionnaires or people who are requesting supplementary question, the owners of the questions in words, can drop their supplementary questions and ask and allow other members to ask further questions, if that will be okay. But if it is not possible, Mr. Speaker, understanding order number one, kindly guide the House so that members do not expect to ask. We can be good listeners and we can listen through, Mr. Speaker, because mine was just simple. I just wanted to find out from the CS body, what is the position of USAID on the payment of universal health coverage, for example, because it's a live issue. I know you have UHC in Garissa, I have UHC there in Kericho. Mine was just to seek clarification. Is the cabinet minister in charge of treasury, looking with the suspension of USAID? Is there a way that they have been catering for UH? And finally, Mr. Speaker, is also, we need your ruling and interpretation, Mr. Speaker, understanding on the number one. When a cabinet minister comes with the questions, even from your dashboard, you can tell whether there is a sufficient answer to the question. Is there, in your wisdom, understanding on the number one on the ruling, to provide to the House, if from the face value the minister has not answered the question adequately, is there, from your position, looking at the reaction of members, to direct that the minister withdraws that response and maybe comes back from 14 to 7 days, Mr. Speaker, so that we also don't waste time? The reason we're asking more questions is because maybe the response from the minister is not sufficient enough. So, Mr. Speaker, I need your guidance on standing order number one, on where the cabinet ministers are giving answers that do not satisfy the House, or we feel that the cabinet minister, Mr. Speaker, has not taken the House seriously, Mr. Speaker. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to request, with your indulgence, if we're having Minister of Interior, we're having Minister of Treasury, we're having Minister of Labor, is there a possible way that going into the future, when we have ministers that have many questions, is there a way we can have them give us two, for example, Minister of Treasury and Education, because we want to agree there are many issues? Is there a way Senate Business Committee can sit and agree, Mr. Speaker? I thank you for that indulgence.
Thank you very much, Senator Cherargei. What you're raising is very valid. And I think we will be taking it up with the SBC so that we cannot be cramping up ministries which are very big, with very big dockets and a lot of questions to the ministry. So I think today we had 3 cabinet secretaries, and it was quite evident that we were not able to manage our time properly. Now, as far as the questions to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior National Administration, we seem to have 6 questions. Maybe I would like to propose that we get all the 6 questions asked. We see how much time we have after that, so that we can know how many supplementary questions we can take thereafter. So we will ask the 6 questions without any supplementaries, And then after the 6 questions have been replied, we will see how many supplementary questions we can take. Is that in order, honorable senators? Very well, thank you. Question number 21 by Beatrice Ogola. Sorry, Cabinet Secretary, I did not welcome you into the House. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Senator Beatrice, please give mic to Senator Beatrice. If you could please ask the question as it appears on the order paper so that we can save time.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is, one, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details on the level of preparedness in mitigation of drought and floods, given the devastation that was experienced in the country during the heavy rains in 2024 and in the previous years too? Are there specific areas that have been particularly mapped out for such mitigation? And what strategies have been put in place for such zones? And lastly, how much has been set aside in the year 2024-25 budget earmarking disaster and emergency response? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Cabinet Secretary. And also, with your indulgence, please, if we could request that you summarize the reply as much as possible, the response, because the answers have already been circulated to the members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me opportunity to be here. I thought I heard earlier from your directive that all the questions be asked once, then I ran through all of them once. I heard in your directive that all the questions be asked once, then I can run through all of them once. If it can.
Oh, very well.
Very
well.
continue.
Then we can do that. Yeah. The next question, number 27, by Senator of Turkana, James Lomanen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I ask question 027. Could the Cabinet Secretary outline the measures in place to mitigate the persistent livestock theft and banditry that has plagued Turkana County for decades? B, what different strategies has the ministry put in place to alleviate the unchecked rates that have exacerbated poverty and insecurity in the region, despite numerous government intervention? C, could the ministry consider the adoption and implementation of modern technological solutions such as animal identification and traceability system, ANITRAC, to enhance livestock traceability and effectively curb cattle rustling? D, could the Cabinet Secretary provide mechanisms that can be implemented to enhance collaboration between Turkana County security agencies and neighboring counties to enforce livestock identification policies and ensure seamless livestock tracking and recovery? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Chute of Marsabit.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I have 3 questions. Question number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary state the number of internally displaced persons in Marsabit town and provide details regarding the timeline and circumstances of the displacement, as well as the form and extent of support provided to them? Question number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary disclose plans and timelines for settling the IDPs and outline measures put in place to ensure their safety and well-being during and after resettlement? Question number 3, what are the terms of compensation of the IDPs, and could the Cabinet Secretary indicate when the compensation will be paid. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hamida Kibwana. Yes, Kajwang, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, not to challenge your directions, but when you look at the time, we've got just about 30 minutes before we close this session. And when you look at the order paper, there are quite a number of questions. We run the risk of asking the questions, and then time runs out, and then we end up taking the written responses from the CS, which will defeat the essence of this session. You know, when we put this in the order, in the standing orders, Mr. Speaker, this session was never there. It was meant to build interaction with the cabinet secretaries. I want to plead with you, Mr. Speaker, that let's not rush so that we finish. Let us have a substantive conversation and probably just take the first 3 of the first 4 questions, let the CS respond, and if he's able to respond satisfactorily within the time allowed, then the other questions could be asked. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, we'll be engaged in an academic exercise, which is not the spirit of this session.
Thank you, Senator, but we were proceeding very well before you interrupted. So what we will do is we'll continue, and you know the speaker has a leeway to increase the time once it gets to 1 o'clock. So we'll see how well the cabinet secretary is doing in terms of his response, okay? Senator Hamida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also have 3 questions, Bwana Waziri. One, Bwana Waziri, could the cabinet secretary explain the deteriorating condition of Nyayo House in Nairobi Central Business District? Which houses the State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services, and indicate whether there are immediate plans to renovate it to ensure efficiency delivery of service to Kenyans. Number 2, what measures have the government put in place to ensure that both the public and government officials working at Nyayo House have access to adequate facilities, including clean water, sanitary amenities, and a conducive working environment? The last one, Bwana Waziri, could the cabinet secretary also confirm whether there's budgetary allocation for the renovation of Nyayo House in the 2024-2025 financial year, and if so, state the amount? Thank you.
Next question by Senator Joe Nyutu on behalf of Senator Kirinyaga County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in for Senator Murango of Kirinyaga County, and I have the following questions to the CS. 1, could the CS state the immediate actions taken to address the increase in incidents of insecurity in Kirinyaga County, particularly in Kerugoya town, where 2 people have been killed by criminals in the last 1 month, and in Gruvani town, where marauding gangs have been waylaying residents early in the morning and late in the evening? And number 2, Mr. Speaker, what is the status of investigations into an attempted robbery with violence incident in the Ringaire area in Kerugoya town on the night of 24th January 2025, in which Mr. Murimi was shot and later succumbed to injuries while undergoing treatment at Kerugoya County Referral Hospital? And could the cabinet secretary clarify the timelines within which police officers should investigate incidents of crime such as this? Number C, Mr. Speaker, what long-term plans does the ministry have to curb insecurity in Kerugoya town and its environs? And finally, could the cabinet secretary also state the number of police officers who have served in one station within Kirinyaga County for more than 3 years, and state when those officers were transferred? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. And the last question by Senator of Tana River, Senator Danson Mugatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 20. Why have the killers of Mr. Isaac Jarso, a resident of Kone village in Tana River County, who was killed by suspected KWS officers on the 29th December 2024 not yet arrested? B, when will the killers be arrested, given that a similar incident happened in Nakuru County on the 18th January 2005, and within hours, arrests of the suspected KWS officers was made? C, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, DCI officers, are yet to make arrests when the suspects are known KWS officers? And finally, when will the family of the late Mr. Jarso be compensated following his unfortunate death? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. Cabinet Secretary, you may respond.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I will run through the questions in the order that was presented to us. First, Mr. Speaker, is the question 003 by Senator Marsabit. I'll jump a number of things there to save time, which are necessary, introductions which are necessary, and straight to the point that, Mr. Speaker, on part one, which is the number of IDPs, between 2017 and 2022, sporadic ethnic, social, political skirmishes resulted in the displacement of people in various parts of Marsabit County. On record, we have 528 households whose houses were vandalized and 135 houses burned as follows. The list is provided, Mr. Speaker, with villages provided for the sublocation. And maybe just to mention the sublocation, in Jirimbe sublocation, we have 12 households, in Milima Tatu, 18, in Mataharba, 33, in Kilta, 35, all totaling in different villages as provided for, and I'm sure the advanced copy was shared. It's a total of 528 households, Mr. Speaker, and the burned houses are 135, and Mr. Speaker, the list is provided. Honorable Speaker, on question 2, the government has been distributing relief food to the affected households. In addition, there has been allocation of bursaries to the affected children. On the terms of compensating the IDPs and when they will be paid, most of the IDPs, Mr. Speaker, have returned to their original manyatas. Manyata Daba, Sales, Wako, Konso, Banjale, Isakon, Umuro, and Gabra scheme. To ensure their safety and security, police posts have been established in the area. SACU CDF has put up a police post at Manyata Daba awaiting deployment of security officers. National Police Reservists have been deployed across the hotspots. And Mr. Speaker, peace dialogue and dialogues have been conducted across the county, and peace structure committees are operational. There is enhanced intelligence gathering, and there is frequent public barazas being conducted in the area. Honorable Speaker, in the absence of budgetary allocation in my ministry to facilitate compensation for IDPs, the county resettlement committee is engaging the IDPs to voluntarily return to their manyatas. This has become possible since the security situation has stabilized. The government commits to ensuring that upon return of the displaced persons, adequate provisions is made to provide them with food and non-food items. Mr. Speaker, on question number 006 by nominated Senator Honorable Amida Kibwana, the Speaker, on part one, which is the deteriorating situation of the Nyayo House, I would like to respond as follows. Nyayo House was commissioned around 42 years ago and currently accommodates over 58 national and county government departments, which offer different services to the citizens, especially immigration services. Previously, the ministry engaged the State Department of Public Works to assess the necessary maintenance works of Nyayo House, and they gave the ministry a bill of quantities amounting to 244 million shillings, 831 and 831,860 shillings, funds which the ministry does not have at the moment. The refurbishment will cover internal and external painting, electrical and mechanical works, including the the lifts, Mr. Speaker, which are actually performing very poorly. The State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services occupies the majority of the floors in Nyayo House. All these floors currently occupied by the State Department are being refurbished to ensure efficient service delivery and a conducive working environment for both the staff and the clients. The floors that accommodate the Principal Secretary's office and on 23rd floor, the Director of E-Citizen Services on 23rd, 22nd, and 17th floors have all been renovated and refurbished with more modern furnishing and IT infrastructure. The service lobby on the ground floor, where the Directorate of Immigration and Citizen Services carries out passport application and issuance, was fully renovated and expanded to accommodate our targeted clientele. Plans are underway to renovate offices on 3rd, 4th, and 8th floors and refurbish all the washrooms and all floors that are occupied by State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services. On part 2, on the measures put in place to ensure both public and government officials working there have clean water, sanitary amenities, and conducive working environment, I'd like to respond as follows, Mr. Speaker. The government has ensured uninterrupted clean water supply, which runs throughout the week from the Nairobi City's county. Nyayo House also has reserve tanks on the rooftop of the building in case we experience water supply shortages. The State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services has also outsourced cleaning services. On whether there is a budgetary allocation for the renovation in 2024-2025, Mr. Speaker, I wish to state that the State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services was allocated 70 million shillings in the financial year 2024-2025 budget for the renovation and refurbishment of our offices at the Nyayo House. However, due to the ongoing austerity measures, the National Treasury reallocated the funds. We do hope that the National Treasury will disperse the funds to allow the completion of the budgeted renovations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On question 012 by Senator James Murango of Kirinyaga County. Mr. Speaker, we have a very detailed response, but I'll try to summarize. Mr. Speaker, regarding the immediate actions that have been taken by the National Police Service to address increasing incidents of insecurity in Kirinyaga County, particularly in Kerukoya town, I'd like to respond as follows. In January 2025, several security incidents were reported in Kerugoya and Gurubani towns within Kirinyaga County. Consequently, the following immediate measures were undertaken to arrest the situation. 1, increased patrols and rapid responses. The National Police Service intensified both foot and mobile patrols in Kerugoya town and its environs, focusing on early morning and late evening hours when incidents were more frequent. 2, special operations. The National Police Service organized continuous special operation to get rid of the criminals. 3, public sensitization. Regular public security meetings were conducted to inform the residents about emerging crime trends and preventive measures. 4, stakeholder partnership. Collaboration was strengthened with community policing groups, Nyumba Kumi initiatives, and private security firms to facilitate information sharing for effective security management. 5, multi-agency coordination. Law enforcement worked closely with the National Government Administration, officers, other security agencies, and public to build confidence in security efforts. 6, targeted investigations. Specialized units were deployed to conduct thorough investigations leading to the arrest and prosecution of criminals. On the status of investigation to an attempted robbery with violence incident in Miringi Lira area in Kerukoya town, and the death of one Mr. Murimi who was shot in the incident, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to respond as follows. On 24th of January 2025 at around 9:30 p.m., Gladys Nyambura Njuki, an M-Pesa shop operator in Kerukoya town, closed her business and boarded a motorcycle registration number provided ridden by Eric Miner to her residence in Mudhaika area. Before reaching her destination, they were intercepted by assailants using 2 numberless motorcycles, each carrying a pillion passenger and armed with a pistol. The criminals confronted the complainant, brandishing pistols, and forcibly snatched her handbag while demanding money. Upon hearing a distress call, a resident, Mr. Peter Karimi Kamau, aged 44 years, responded in an attempt to assist. Unfortunately, one of the robbers shot him. They also fired 2 shots into the air to disperse bystanders before fleeing the scene on their motorcycles. Police officers arrived promptly, but criminals had already escaped. At the scene, the police officers recovered 2 spent cartridges and 5 rounds of ammunition. The injured victim was rushed to Kerugoya County Referral Hospital for treatment. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, he succumbed to these injuries the following day, on 25th January 2025. A post-mortem was done and confirmed that he had suffered a fatal gunshot wound to the abdomen. Investigation commenced under the offense of robbery with violence, contrary to Section 296(2) of the Penal Code, and the reference is provided. Forensic done at the DCI headquarters by conducting ballistic examination on 2 spent cartridges recovered at the scene of crime, established that the firearm used in this incident had also been linked to the separate robbery with violence case in DCI Ruiru. Mr. Speaker, as now the suspect remain at large and the case is still under active investigation to apprehend those who are responsible. Regarding the long-term plans by the National Police Service to curb insecurity in Kerugoya town and its environs, Mr. Speaker, the government is committed to implementing long-term measures to enhance security and maintain law and order in Kerugoya town and its surrounding areas. The following strategies aim to provide sustainable solutions to crime and insecurity: strengthening the community policing and Nyumba Kumi initiative, increasing, and the more details are provided for in the statement, increasing police presence and patrols, use of technology of crime prevention, especially CCTV cameras, and use of the toll-free emergency number, Fichua kwa DCI, capacity building and training of officers. We provide continuous training for the officers on modern crime fighting techniques, intelligence gathering, and human rights practices, among others. Number 5, addressing socioeconomic drivers of crime. We would like to collaborate with the local community organization to provide social programs aimed at reducing criminal behavior, improve the legal and judicial processes to enhance collaboration between the police and judiciary to ensure that these cases are handled swiftly, enhance intelligence and surveillance operations in the area, strengthening public-private partnership in security, working together with the private firms and the community, and finally, periodic security audits and stakeholder engagement to ensure that we deal with these threats. On the list of police officers who have served in Kirinyaga County over 3 years and their transfer status, Honorable Speaker, the Service Standing Orders, SSO Cap 72, govern the transfer and deployment of police officers. As stipulated, the mandate for deployment lies with the Inspector General and is not used as a disciplinary measure or reward. Mr. Speaker, additionally, in line with the Maraga Task Force recommendations, officers should not serve in a single station for more than 3 years to enhance their professionalism, mitigate corruption, and ensure optimal service delivery. However, exceptional circumstances allow certain officers to remain in one station beyond this period, including those with medical conditions requiring family support, officers are undergoing disciplinary proceedings, and those nearing retirement who wish to serve closer home. In this regard, we have a total of 30 police officers who have served for more than 3 years in Kerugoya town. Mr. Speaker, on question number 020 by Senator of Tana River County, Honorable Danson Mukatana, on matter of Mr. Isaac Jarso, Mr. Speaker, I wish to respond as follows. On part 1 of the question, Mr. Speaker, which is the why the killers have not been arrested, I'd like to respond as follows. On 29th of December 2024, and approximately at approximately 10:30 hours, a contingent of 23 Kenya Wildlife Service Ranger embarked on an operation to remove cattle and herders who had allegedly settled inside Savo East National Park. During the operation, the Rangers encountered Isaac Abdullah Jarso, now deceased, his family and his friends at his Manyata. When the Rangers attempted to arrest the deceased, an altercation ensued, escalating into a physical confrontation, pitting him and his friends against the Rangers. The scuffles resulted in the fatal shoot of Isaac Abdullah Jarso. At 10:45 hours, Mr. Said Omar, Assistant Chief of Kone Sublocation, reported the incident at Garsen Police Station under OBIN number provided. Officers from Kone Police Post responded promptly and arrived at the scene where they found the lifeless body of Isaac Abdullah Jarso, a 42-year-old male. The body had gunshot wounds on the upper right thigh. Investigations commenced under inquiry number 4 of 2024 of DCI Delta, with officers documenting evidence at the scene and recovering 4 spent cartridges. The body was moved to Malindi Sub-County Hospital mortuary for preservation, where postmortem examination conducted, confirming that the cause of death was gunshot inflicted injuries. As part of the investigation, statements were recorded from the key witnesses, including the deceased wife, 2 friends who were with him at the time of the incident, and 2 brothers who arrived after being alerted about the shooting. Additionally, statements were taken from KWS Rangers involved in the operation. To facilitate forensic analysis, all 23 rifles used by the Rangers during the operation were collected and escorted to the forensic laboratory in Nairobi for ballistic examination. The ballistic expert report is yet to be finalized. Once investigations are concluded, the action will be taken against the KWS officers found culpable in the fatal shooting. Mr. Speaker, regarding when the killers will be arrested, given that similar incident happened in Nakuru, Mr. Speaker, as I said, investigations commenced immediately, and the inquiry was forwarded to the DPP via the number provided dated January 2025. In response, the ODPP, through a letter referencing this as provided dated 14 February 2025, directed that several additional matters be established through further investigation, including firearm ballistic report. As stated earlier, appropriate action will be taken against the officers found culpable. On number 3, only why the DCI officers yet to make arrests. Again, Mr. Speaker, the matter is still under active investigation by the DCI, and once concluded, appropriate action will be taken against anyone found culpable of the offense. Every effort is being made to expedite and conclude the investigation to ensure justice is served. Mr. Speaker, regarding when the family of Mr. Jarso will be compensated, Mr. Speaker, compensation for the family for the late Isaac Abdullah Jarso will be subjected to due process depending on the outcome of the investigations. Mr. Speaker, on question number 5 by Honorable Beatrice Ogola, I wish to respond as follows. On part 1, on the level of preparedness on the mitigation of drought and floods, Mr. Speaker, the prolonged 2024 rains resulted in flooding that impacted most parts of the country. A total of 315 people died due to the floods. 58,641 households, representing 293,205 individuals were displaced, and 412,262 persons were affected. The flooding caused havoc to roads, bridges, aerodromes, railway lines, school infrastructure, and health facilities. 298,673 acres of agriculture land and 9,367 livestock were washed away. The government and partners supported the affected population with the evacuations and provision of shelter. Cut-off roads and railway lines were reopened. Further, the government distributed 3,798 1.1 metric tons of relief and other non-food items to affected population. Arising out of this experience, the government has strengthened early warning systems and disaster preparedness for anticipated flood risks. The government will issue timely alerts besides mobilizing emergency response efforts and awareness creation. The government is investing in climate resilient infrastructure, flood control measures, and disaster mitigation strategies to reduce vulnerability. This includes improving drainage systems in towns and cities. Number 2, on the specific areas that are particularly been mapped out, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say as follows. 3 months weather forecast issued by Kenya Meteorological Department on March, April, and May indicates near to above normal rains for the western part of the country, below normal for the rest of the country. There is therefore likelihood of floods in only 3 counties, Kisumu, Busia, and Tana River. The government has employed the flooding strategies, among others, to mitigate against possible floods. Following strategies, among others, to mitigate against the possible floods. 1, promoting reforestation and soil conservation. 2, rehabilitation of roads. 3, acquisition of food and non-food items in preparedness for that season. 4, mobilizing emergency response efforts. 5, awareness creation among the stakeholders and members of the public. 6, improving drainage systems in towns. 7, developing and regularly updating emergency response to ensure swift and effective actions in event of flooding, including protocols of evacuation in event of flooding. Number 8, fostering collaboration among stakeholders to develop coordinated response to flooding incidents. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on that question, on how much has been set aside for 2024-2025, I'd like to say in the current financial year, the minister has set aside 40 million for disaster and emergency response. This notwithstanding, the government will mobilize more resources should there be need to do so. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on question number 6, I hope it's finally, yes. On the, by Senator of Turkana, Senator James Lomenen, I'd like to respond as follows. On part 1, regarding the measures in place to mitigate persistent livestock theft and banditry that have plagued Turkana County for decades, Mr. Speaker, the government is committed to addressing the historical challenges of livestock theft and banditry in Turkana County and other regions by implementing several measures. The measures include enhanced security deployment. The Speaker, there is an increased presence now of through specialized units such as anti-stock theft, rapid deployment unit, and general service unit to deter criminal activities. B, strengthening border security, increased patrol along porous border with neighbor countries to prevent cross-border raids and smuggling of stolen livestock. C, strengthening the inter-county and cross-border collaborations, particularly with neighboring counties and countries to prevent movement of stolen livestock and spread conflict across borders. D, recruitment of training and equipping of national police reservists drawn from local communities to complement police efforts in intelligence gathering and security patrols. 5, strict legal action and prosecution of perpetrators. We're working closely with the Office of DPP and the judiciary to ensure swift prosecution of arrested bandits. And 6, disarmament of, or F, disarmament of weapon recovery. There are ongoing efforts to recover illegal firearms through voluntary surrender program and targeted security operations. Mr. Speaker, on part 2, on the different strategies put in place to elevate the unchecked rates that have exacerbated poverty and insecurity in the region, where, Mr. Speaker, I would like to respond as follows. The government has implemented multifaceted approach to address the persistent rates in the region by continuously assessing and adapting strategies to effectively tackle insecurity and restore sustainable peace and development in the region. They include community policing and intelligence gathering, Mr. Speaker, 2, interagency collaboration with KDF, NGAO, police working together. 3, marking and digitization of livestock identification. In some parts, we have already introduced the livestock branding, microchipping, and digital database to facilitate tracing and recovery of stolen animals. 4, engagement of peace committees and elders, strengthening peace dialogues with community elders, religious leaders, and local administrators to promote conflict resolution, discourage retaliatory attacks, and foster long-term reconciliation among warring communities. 5, continuous training and capacity building of the National Police Service and the NPRs, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they can respond effectively. And 6, purchase and distribution of new equipment for use by the security personnel, such as drones, mine-resistant, and ambush protected vehicles. Mr. Speaker, on part 3, on whether the government can consider adoption of implementation of modern technology, I'd like to respond as follows, Mr. Speaker. The National Police Service established a committee to oversee the implementation of GIS-based livestock tracking system in collaboration with the consultancy firm, Jipu Cyber Solutions, which was engaged to develop necessary software and infrastructure for livestock registration, movement tracking, and ownership verification. The system has been proposed for rollout in 3 counties in the Rift Valley and 4 counties in the Eastern region. The process has reached the advanced stage with public participation plan to allow Jibu Cyber Solutions to conduct a proof of concept. This will test the feasibility, impact, and adaptability of GIS-based cattle tracking technology, which would be integrated with real-time monitoring. Once fully implemented, the solution will be linked to the existing police service infrastructure at the Integrated Control and Command Center, IC3, to enhance security and response to livestock theft incidents. On part 4, Mr. Speaker, regarding mechanisms that can be implemented to enhance collaboration between Turkana County security agencies and neighboring counties to enforce livestock identification policies and ensure seamless livestock tracking and recovery, I'd like to respond as follows. The government acknowledges the importance of livestock marking for identification and monitoring in the banditry-prone areas, as well as the need for inter-county collaboration in enforcing livestock identification policies and ensuring efficient tracking and recovery of stolen livestock. Our ministry, in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Department, formed a joint committee to oversee the implementation of a GIS-based livestock tracking system. Additionally, to strengthen coordination, various mechanisms have been recommended to enhance cooperation, streamline livestock identification, and improve recovery efforts. They include the strengthening inter-county coordination of livestock management, 2, adoption of livestock identification system, 3, strengthening livestock market regulations, 4, cross-border security and regional cooperation, 5, legal and policy reforms, which includes the punishment and review of the punishment meted on cattle rustlers, among others, and finally, public awareness and sensitization programs. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Senators, we are going to extend for not more than 15 minutes as per the provisions in the standing order. And I shall take, I think it will give us two questions from each side. So whoever is going to catch my eye on this side. No, we don't have time for that. Okay, Senator Chute, you have the first question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm really shocked to hear the answer from the Cabinet Secretary telling this Honorable House that the IDPs in Marsabit were resettled, compensated, and bursaries given to those IDPs. I think the Cabinet Secretary is misled by being told that these people have been resettled. I want the Cabinet Secretary to provide evidence that shows that those IDPs were compensated or resettled or bursaries given. Any evidence that shows that the bursaries were given and by who? Because as far as I know, there were no bursaries given to IDPs. There were no settlement at all. So if there is any evidence, the Cabinet Secretary cannot just tell this House.
Senator Chute, you do realize we don't have much time.
Yes.
We've understood your question. Please, let's allow other senators.
Honorable Speaker.
Let us allow other senators to ask
Give me
a
30
question.
Seconds, 30 seconds to conclude.
No, Senator, you've taken long enough.
But this is a
We've
very
understood the question.
Honorable Speaker, this is a very serious matter.
We've understood the question. You've made the question very clear. So
let
it
me
will be
conclude.
answered by the Cabinet Secretary. Just give other senators an opportunity. Senator Beatrice Ogola, under 1 minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. To the Cabinet Secretary, do we have disaster preparedness measures put in place that are gender sensitive? Because disasters affect genders differently.
Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, the minister told us that 23 guns on the incident of Tana River in Kone were taken to the for ballistic examination, and the report hasn't come out. What I wanted him to tell us is what is the capacity at the examinations place, ballistic examinations place? What is the problem? Since January, now we are heading towards March. In fact, very soon we'll be 4 months down the road. Mr. Speaker, what is happening in the ballistic examinations place? Can he do something? Because this issue has caused a lot of tension in Tana River.
Thank you,
Mr.
Senator.
Speaker.
Senator Lomanen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to ask the CS, when will he lift the ban, curfew in between West Pokot and Turkana? Because the former CS for Inti did the same. He said that the curfew has been removed, but up to now the traders are really suffering, and there is no highway robbery in that road.
Thank you. Let us allow the Cabinet Secretary to reply to those 4 questions, and then we'll take some more supplementaries.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. On Senator Chute's response, I was clear that we don't have money for compensation. However, the support that is working together with the CDF of the constituency, among others, some of the affected have been favored in terms of bursaries, including bursaries from the county government. I also want to say that since we don't have money for resettling people, as the statement indicates, the encouragement was to make the conditions better for people to go back to their manyatas in terms of security operations, and then give them a chance to go back. And as a result of the same, a good number of them have gone back. A few are yet to go back. Mr. Speaker, on the evidence of the same, it can be provided to the Honorable Senator in writing for the same. On the question of Honorable Beatrice Ogola, we have been and we will continue being gender sensitive in terms of disaster response. If you see what the government did last year, a lot of focus was on issues that are going to affect women, the needs, specific needs of women, specific needs for children, and this will continue. And we will continue perfecting, our responses based on the experience we get from every year. And I believe that the gender-based sensitive measures are continuing going to be revised to ensure that we are effectively responding to disasters. On Senator Mungatana's question of DCI, indeed, we have a financial challenge and capacity challenge at the DCI, and we are working to address that issue because there is a backlog. If you heard from my report earlier, the situation in Kirinyaga and the one in Tana River, both are still waiting for the report of the ballistic report to come out. But in my last visit, when I went to DCI office, they made certain requests that we are trying to factor in the incoming budget. And I believe that we should be able to make it to expedite the process, because these are 23 guns. So you have to really match each one of them until you find this is the one which was owned by or used by this particular officer. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the question of Senator Lomenen, we will assess the security situation. We continuously receive intelligence reports about the situation in Turkana, between Turkana and West Pokot, including recent activities around mining areas in Aro and the border. And we still have a dicey situation in some cases, but we lifted the ban as soon as we are ready to do so, and we can work together with local leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Senator Joe Newtu, under 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am just following up on the question by Senator Murango, question number 1, about the actions that were taken by the ministry following the killing of 2 people. The CS has responded, and they said that they introduced patrols and special operations and many others. Mr. Speaker, then my question is, we were taught I think in lower primary school that prevention is better than cure. So what is the ministry doing to see to it that we have preventive measures other than responsive measures? Because, Mr. Speaker, 1 life lost is 1 too many. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Catherine Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is a follow-up on Senator Beatrice Ogola's question. CS, the time to prepare for disaster or management of the floods in Nyando is now. Properly speaking, the machines for doing the dikes should be happening now. Why do we wait every year, and it is very predictable, for the floods to happen in Nyando, and then we purport to bring in dikes, including our senator purporting to create dikes with his own money, and then the same story of evacuating people. Why can't we build the dikes now in the next 2 weeks so that when the rains come, the water is diverted and you don't have to evacuate people?
Senator Sige, under 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In his response to Senator Hamida's question, the Honorable CS made reference to a reallocation of the funds that had been requested to renovate Naya House. I do not know whether the Honorable CS is aware that the basement to that particular building, which is actually an exit and entry to the lifts, is in a sorry state. There is leaking water or sewerage that is a serious health hazard. And secondly and lastly, whether the CS in his comment about the Maraga Task Force recommendation has plans to implement that particular report, and if so, when will that be implemented in the police force?
Those are two questions, Senator. So, Senator Mandago, final question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Mine is not a question, but I'd like to ask the CS that it looks like there are too many incidences associated with KWS officers. We had an incident in Nakuru. We had an incident in Tana River. Probably your ministry should put a little bit of focus on the officers. And finally, Honorable Speaker, I request the CS probably we could visit Marsabit just to assess the situation. And
Very
sure
well, Senator.
The other Manyatas have at least come so that they can go back.
You're only supposed to ask one question, so the CS will only answer one question. Senator Kavindu, final question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is to ask Honorable CS about insecurity. This is insecurity that Senator Murango is asking about is not only in Muranga, but also in Machakos. We have a lot of insecurity, especially in a place called Matungulu, Machakos County, and other small areas. What are you doing about it? And also transfers of the police, which have been in our station for more than 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Cabinet Secretary, you can respond. You only have 5 minutes to respond.
Thank you. I will be as brief as possible, Mr. Speaker. On the question of preventive measures in Kirinyaga, we have listed them in the statement on some of the preventive measures we apply, including preparation, early preparations, working with local community, strengthening Nyumba Kumi, intelligence gathering, training of the officers. So all of them are listed in the statement already, Mr. Speaker. On the question of Senator Muma, I agree with her that this is the time to do so. And this is not just a role that is played by national government. County government also has a responsibility. And to be fair, the county government last year did some good job working together with the national government. The only challenge we continue facing as a country is budgetary constraints. But to agree with you, because now Kisumu is one of the areas that is forecasted to have higher than normal rains, it is important for us to do what we need to do now. And I think we will do everything humanly possible within the budget that we have to do so. On the Senator Sige's on Nyayo actually is, to be honest, Nyayo needs urgent attention, particularly when it comes to the lifts. Anybody who, I have an office there, so I get stuck in the lift many times. So I have a personal experience, including using the basement you've talked about, leaking and so forth. But then when you have a budget situation on austerity measures, you are struggling between providing social services, health, and others, and renovations. And that's why we are facing the situation we are facing. But we will continue working to see what we'll do with Nyaya House. But I agree with Senator Sige. And also that in the Maraga report, Mr. Speaker, we are implementing Maraga report in total, including already improved salaries to police officers of a lower cadre. These issues about transfers being worked out, among many other things. And I think I'll have an opportunity in future to come and expound further because this is a very important report for us, as was the first task force that the president established when he came to office. On the question of Senator Mandago, indeed, I'm going to Marsabit soon, and I'll inform the Senator of Marsabit so that we can have a personal view. There are many things that have been happening in Marsabit. We've done massive operation in Marsabit to deal with the issues of OLA and also drugs and many other things. So we will have an opportunity to visit with him so that we can see what's happening. On the KWS issue, indeed, it was of great concern for us what happened in Tana River and Nakuru. And I think we have been in conversation with the DG KWS. We will enhance this conversation between Kenya National Police Service and KWS to see whether there is a problem somewhere that needs to be dealt with among the officers that serve in KWS to ensure that we avert such situations in the future. And finally, I agree with Senator Kavindu, Agnes, that it is true that Machakos, we have had challenges in Matungulu, but those challenges, Mr. Speaker, were also related to criminal gangs, which are owned by politicians in the Matungulu area. And Mr. Speaker, like we have tried to do so across the country, we have been feeling the resurgence of political gangs or criminals posing as political gangs and pretending to be working with politicians across the country, in Western, in Rift Valley, in Mombasa, in Machakos, Matungulu area, among others. And Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with it. We will, I promise that we will dismantle these gangs, including in Matungu in Kakamega County. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Cabinet Secretary, and it was nice to have you, and looking forward to have you again. Honorable Senators, it is now 1:15 p.m. and having concluded the business for which I extended the hours of sitting pursuant to Standing Order 34-2A, the Senate stands adjourned until today, later today, 5th March 2025 at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you.
This being the proceedings of the House on the 5th day of March, the year being 2025, brought to you by the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation in conjunction with the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. In the highlights in the order of business this afternoon, we have the National Police Service Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 23 of the year 2024 that dominated the National Assembly proceeding for the better part of last session of the House. That was Tuesday afternoon, yesterday. And after completion of the debate on the National Police Service Commission Amendment Bill, the House will then move to vote on the bill. This bill is sponsored by Honorable Peter Masara. The Basic Education Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 59 of the year 2023, is lined up for debate this morning. This bill is by Honorable Mary Wamaua, currently at the second stage, and we'll be having members of the National Assembly debate this bill that seeks to boost and strengthen operations in the basic education. Away from that, we equally have other motions that members of the National Assembly are set to delve into this morning. Among them is motion number 33 of 2023 on supporting and promoting local fertilizer manufacturing industries. This is a motion by Honorable Samuel Atandi, the Honorable Member for Alego Usonga. Honorable Atandi, in his motion, states that aware that fertilizers and animal foodstuffs, this is Fertilizers and Animal Foodstuff Act Cap number 345, provides for regulation of fertilizer importation in the country, and further aware that fertilizer and animal food products regulates the fertilizer and animal foodstuffs industry, including the manufacture and the production of fertilizers, and noting that the country currently relies heavily on imported fertilizers. This is due to inadequate local production capacity, and further noting that local production leads to high cost of acquiring fertilizers for farmers and reducing their profits, and results in unhealthy reliance on imported fertilizer, concerned that this scenario threatens the country's food security in the case of supplies disruptions and discourages local production, recognizing that the local fertilizer production could lead to improved fertilizer quality and increased crop yields, and a reduction in environmental harm that has been caused by the use of subsidized, so to speak, substandard fertilizers, recalling that the country has the potential to produce fertilizer that could meet the country's domestic demand and also supply the region's market, and further recognizing that there is need for the government to work with local producers to develop high quality fertilizer tailored to the need of the Kenyan farmers and crops. Now, therefore, the House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, supports and promotes local fertilizer manufacturing, and by investing in the research and department to bolster the domestic fertilizer manufacturing sector. Pursuant to Standing Orders number 42, 44, subsection 2C, a number of members of parliament are set to request for statements this morning. Honorable Joyce Kamene, the honorable member for Machakos County, is set to request for a statement on the effects of withdrawal of funding by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, in Kenya. That statement will be handled by the Committee on Matters Health. Honorable Esther Passaris, the county MP for Nairobi County, will equally be requesting for a statement that will be handled by the House Departmental Committee on Matters Health. The statement is on the status of security in Kenyatta National Hospital. Honorable Stephen Mugaka, the honorable member for West Mugirango, will be requesting for a statement this morning on the state of preparedness for the wet season in the country. This statement will be tackled by the Committee on Matters Regional Development. The House Committee on Matters Transport and Infrastructure will be handling the request for statement by Honorable George Gashagwa, the honorable member for Ndaragwa, on the lack of speed bumps along the Nyahururu Nyeri Road. The Learners with Disability Bill, a bill originating from the Senate, Bill number 4 of the year 2023, is lined up for second reading this morning. This bill is by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Matters Social Protection. And away from that, we equally have the Treaty Making and Ratification Amendment Bill number 2, this being National Assembly Bill Bills number 9 of the year 2024 by the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Matters of Justice and Legal Affairs. If you're just joining us, the business of the National Assembly is just about to commence as the sergeant at arms have already made their way into the chamber, signaling that House business being a live proceedings of the National Assembly this morning, a day set aside for members' bill, is just about to commence. You can see on your screens Honorable David Ochieng, a member of the Speaker's panel, has already stepped into the chamber, ready to preside over the business of the National Assembly this morning. Kindly allow me to hand over for this live broadcast that is brought to you by KBC.
Members, let's pray. Almighty God, you know, wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society, the just government of the people. We beseech you to behold with your abundant favor, as your servants, whom you have been pleased to call, the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our people, of our country, and of those whose interests you committed to our charge. Amen.
Siwa Cook.
Members, we shall ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes. And during that period when the bell is being rung, no member is allowed to leave the chamber. The whip.
Well, at the National Assembly this morning, we have the commencement of business that has been followed by the ringing of the quorum bell this morning to necessitate for more members of parliament are still within the presence of parliament to make their way into the chamber this morning to allow the house to raise quorum. And this directive on the ringing of the quorum bell has been given pursuant to standing orders of the house, standing orders number 34, that guide the house on matters quorum at the commencement of business. So as you await for signals to ascertain whether the house has raised the quorum, in which the standing orders provides for the speaker to add an additional 5 minutes upon the lapse of 10 minutes, being another leeway for members of parliament to make their way into the chamber. And in the event that will not be attained, the speaker adjourns the house until the next sitting of the house, being Wednesday. The house is sitting in the morning and in the afternoon. But away from that, let's now have a look at the order paper on the other businesses for consideration by honorable members of the National Assembly this morning, where the House will be considering the supporting and promotion of local fertilizer manufacturing industries, this being a motion by Honorable Samuel Latandi. And away from that, the formulation of a new reward scheme for accomplishment by sports persons in international competitions is yet another motion lined up for debate this morning. This motion is by Honorable Charles Ngusia. In this motion, the honorable member states that are aware that sports plays an integral role in promoting cultural heritage, national identity, national development, the well-being of the people, and sustenance of livelihoods, particularly of the youth, and appreciating that sessional paper number 3 of the year 2005 provides for a framework for the sports development and operationalization in the country, and further appreciating that the sector plans for sports, culture, and arts in 2018 by the Ministry of Sports, Culture, and Arts mainstreamed sports development in the third medium-term plan, that is between 2018 to 2022, under Kenyan's Vision 2030, and recognizing that the Vision 2030 aims at capitalizing on the country's international reputation as a world-class sports powerhouse, where sportsmen and women who have won international accolades and recognition, especially for their prowess in matters athletics, concerned that despite bringing honor and national pride to the country, most sportsmen and women face a myriad of challenges, such as lack of psychological support.
No one is going to leave the chamber until the quorum bell is stopped. No one leaves the chamber until the quorum bell is stopped. During this period, you are allowed, you can cross the aisle anyhow you want, but you can't leave the chamber.
That was the guidance of the speaker just now, guiding members that owing to the fact that the House lacks quorum, members are not allowed to step outside the chamber until such a time when the House raises quorum to commence business this morning, and that being an orderly guidance of the members by the speakers. The motion on the formulation of a rewarding scheme for accomplishment of sportsmen in the sports sector, Honorable Charles Ngusia is also seeking to have the House urge the government through the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and Arts to develop a policy and standardize reports and sports reward scheme for recognizing the achievements made by sports persons in the internationally recognized competitions through financial rewards of 6 million shillings for setting a new record, 4 million shillings for gold medalists, 3 million shillings for silver medalists, and 2 million shillings for bronze medalists. The member is also seeking to have a non-financial motivation, including facilitation with issuance of diplomatic passports for established sportsmen and women, appointment as goodwill ambassadors, and conferring national honors and privileges, and finally establishing a medical cover and a post-retirement social protection scheme, including establishment of a contributory insurance and saving schemes to support sports persons who retire from active sporting due to injuries or matters to do with age. So away from the motion that is seeking to boost the operations in the sports sector and celebrate the athletes and sportsmen who are setting new records and giving the country pride, the expansion of the major roads in the country to dual carriageways. Being motion number 2 of the year 2024 is lined up for debate this morning. This motion is by Honorable Faith Gitau. Faith Gitau, in her motion, states that the Kenya Roads Act Cap 48 provides for the establishment of road authorities responsible for, among other functions, the management and development of roads under their respective purview, and for the developing and providing of adequate transport infrastructure that guides safe and efficient movement of people, goods, and services across the country and beyond. And further, aware that the first schedule of the Kenya Road Act provides for the classification of roads into class A, B, and C, and recognizing that under the fourth schedule of the Constitution, the operation of the national trunk roads, noting that significant portion of highways in the national trunk road networks are currently single carriageways, and concerned that during peak periods, which limit movements of people, goods, and services across the regions and increases vulnerabilities to road accidents, the House resolves that the government, through the Ministry of Roads and Transport, undertakes the expansion program of national trunk roads with a view of upgrading all classes A, B, and C roads in the country from two-way lanes to dual carriageways or one-way roads with the necessary infrastructure that includes footbridges, safe crossing zones at regular road joints, and two-way lanes to dual carriageways with the intervals and proper drainage systems and other requisite infrastructure in their optimal operation. The House will equally this morning debate a motion on the implementation of the universal health coverage and a policy on the mandatory use of public healthcare facilities by public officers. This motion by Honorable Sabina Chege that is seeking to have public officers mandated to use public health facilities under the universal health coverage. Through this motion is seeking to have the National Assembly resolve that the government, through the Ministry of Health, implements the Kenya Universal Health Coverage Policy of 2020 to 2030 and introduce a policy on mandatory use of healthcare coverage policy and use of public healthcare facilities by all civil servants, public officers, and state officers in the country. The members of the National Assembly are still streaming into the chamber this morning to allow the House raise a quorum of at least 550 members of Parliament to allow the House commence business, this being a sitting on Wednesday morning.
Quorum bell can now be stopped. I confirm that we have quorum. And members, you can now take your seats. We may start. All members have confirmed that we have quorum. And the Honorable Amboka, it's not your job to look for quorum for the House. You are completely out of order, Honorable Jack Wamboka. Out of order totally. You are so out of order, Honorable Wamboka. Take your seat. Honorable Jack Wamboka, take your seat. Order. I think we can start the House business.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader, Majority Whip.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House. Today, Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, morning sitting. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statement for the years ended 30th June 2021, 30th June 2022, 30th June 2023, and the certificate therein in respect of number 1, Bishop Edward Donovan Secondary School, 2, Bura Girls High School, 3, Gatamayu High School, 4, Hiriga Girls Secondary School, 5, Akashiri Secondary School, 6, Ikanga Girls Secondary School, 7 Olodokilani Secondary School, 8 Kamadura Girls High School, 9 Career Boys Secondary School, 10 Kasikeo Boys Secondary School, 11 Kipopei Secondary School, 12 Kibishiku Secondary School, 13 Kibiru Girls Secondary School, 14 Kirima Girls Kirima Girls High School, 15 Lake Solai Secondary School, 16 Mazeras High School, 17 Muruira Boys Secondary School, 18 Ngala Secondary School for the deaf, 19 Nkueni Girls High School, 20 Noromaru Girls Secondary School, 21 Nyeri High School, 22 Our Lady of Fatima Chinga Girls High School, number 23 Ribe Girls Secondary School, 24, St. Thomas Secondary School, Kilifi. 25, St. Jude Girls Secondary School, Makueni. 26, St. Mary's High School, Lushangonyi. 27, St. Thomas Aquinas Boys Tomendu Secondary School. 28, Stella Maris Odaya Girls High School. 29, Wagals Secondary School, and 30, Weru Secondary School. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I lay.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Members, if you have the order paper, the questions will follow the pattern in which they appear in the last page of the order paper. So, the Honorable Joyce Kamene is in the house. The Honorable Joyce Kamene, are you ready? You got the mic already with you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to request for a statement regarding the effects of withdrawal for funding by United States agencies for international development in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairpersons of the Department Committee of Health regarding the effects of withdrawal of fundings by the United States agencies for international development, USAID, in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the abrupt suspension of US foreign aid under USAID has significantly disrupted critical programs in the country. This suspension, which took effect on 24th January 2025, resulted from the US Presidential Executive Order, mandating the re-evaluation and realignment of US foreign aid. Consequently, all new funding obligations and sub-obligations under the US Development Objective Agreements has been halted for 30 days. With the livelihoods of permanent withdrawals from some projects. Honorable Speaker, the halting of fundings has really caused severe economic and social disruptions, leading to the loss of at least 35,000 jobs, both directly and indirectly, as many non-governmental organizations, NGOs, in the health, agriculture, education sectors, among others, rely on USAID-backed contracts. Additionally, the healthcare sector is among the most affected, with thousands of doctors, nurses, midwives, and community health workers facing imminent unemployment. USAID has allocated Kenya shillings 18 million to HIV AIDS programs, shillings 7.6 billion to basic health care, and 5.8 billion to maternal and child health. including family planning. These initiatives have been lifeline for many communities, and this disruption jeopardizes the ability for the country to meet its health targets. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Department Committee of Health on following. The immediate steps being taken to ensure that critical health
Honorable
programs.
Walter Owino, go back and do the right thing. Go ahead.
The immediate steps being taken to ensure that critical health programs such as HIV, AIDS, and tuberculosis management continues undisrupted. The second one, the measures in place to support and retain healthcare workers affected by the suspension of the USAID funding. And the third one, the long-term strategies being adapted to ensure sustainable financing of the health and other crucial sectors using domestic resources, therefore reducing reliance on foreign aid. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
This shall be referred to the Committee on Health. I don't know, I cannot see the chair of the Committee of Health. Any member of that committee? The Honorable Nyamai, what did you want to comment about on this? Okay, go ahead. 1 minute for you, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to make a comment on the statement that has been raised by the Honorable Kamene, member for Machakos County. Yes, I congratulate her for bringing this matter to the House. I would like to ask the Departmental Committee on Health, as they respond to this issue, to bear in mind that there is a new world order, that the withdrawal and reduction of funding is happening all over the world. And it seems that the United States of America has decided through their current leadership to make decisions that affect all of us. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that from the time that I was chair for health in the 11th Parliament, the issue of over-reliance of donor funding, and especially on matters which concern us so much, including family planning. Honorable Speaker, this is a matter that we need to wake up as a country and fund ourselves. We cannot keep on relying on donors to take care of matters that concern our core livelihoods, including that even getting infected with HIV, which has quite a long history. I know that there are international programs, but I think that it is time we wake up and make right decisions. Thank you for giving me the chance, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Nairobi, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend Joyce Kameme for bringing this, and I agree with Honorable Rachel Nyamai that the world order is changing. I think this is a time for us as a country to reflect on how Singaporeans actually decided to decisively deal with corruption, decisively deal with the need to serve their own people. Uhuru Kenyatta was the first to pronounce himself on USAID's withdrawal and the American government withdrawing funds, essential funds that have been committed to Africa.
Who is Uhuru Kenyatta?
The former president of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. He actually pronounced himself on the issue of dependence on donor aid, and we should become looking towards being sustainable on our own. I think it's a wake-up call. We need to decisively deal with corruption so that we have enough resources to be able to cope with the demands that we have in our country. And that is the one area that Singapore was successful, and that will heighten and raise the patriotism that we need in our country. If we don't raise our patriotism, Kenya will suffer, and we cannot afford to suffer. We've got 50 to 60 million people depending on us as government. So we need to ensure that we become self-reliant. And I think it is important for us to call a spade, not a spoon.
the US and all these countries that have loaned the African countries money and are not willing to give us loss and damage in terms of climate change. We need to also say, if they want to withdraw essential funding, which have been cushioning us because of the various loans that they've given us at very high interest rates, then they also stand the risk of us serving our people first before we serve their debts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, this statement is referred to the Committee on Health, and we hope they can give a report in the next 3 weeks. Members, before I give the member for Nairobi again, join me in recognizing and welcoming students from Loreto Convent, Songari Junior Secondary School, Westlands constituency, Nairobi County, and students from Our Lady of Fatima Kiriko Girls School, Gatundu North in Kiambu County. They are welcome to follow proceedings this morning and to Parliament. Thank you. Now, member for Nairobi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44.2c, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Health regarding the status of security at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Honorable Speaker, security in healthcare facilities is foundational in providing safe and effective care as it safeguards patients, protects staff, secures assets, and ensures prompt emergency response while maintaining a secure environment for the vulnerable in hospitals. Regrettably, recent events have raised serious concerns on the security measures at our national hospitals. On 7th February 2025, Mr. Gilbert Kinyua was found dead in Ward 7B at the Kenyatta National Hospital after having been brutally murdered. Similarly, at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret County, a 52-year-old cancer patient, Mr. Albert Chesang, mysteriously disappeared from his hospital bed on the 29th of January 2025. His decomposing body was later discovered on the 9th of February 2025, approximately 200 meters away from the hospital on the banks of River Sosiani. Earlier on 29th November 2015, Mr. Cosmos Mutunga was found dead in his hospital bed in Kenyatta National Hospital, having been stabbed severally using a sharp object. Honorable Speaker, despite the brutal murders of Mr. Cosmos Mutunga and Mr. Gilbert Kinyua, no arrests have been made to date, yet the said patients were killed in the presence of other patients. These incidences therefore paint a grim picture on the security of healthcare facilities and the need for higher security standards within such spaces. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Health on the following. A report on the investigation into the death of Mr. Cosmos Mutunga, who was brutally murdered on 29 November 2015, including an expansion on the inordinate delay of justice, given that no arrests have been made to date. 2, actions being taken by the Ministry of Health to investigate the deaths of Mr. Gilbert Kinyua and the apprehension of the suspects responsible for his brutal murder. 3, measures being put in place to ensure the establishment of robust security mechanisms that ensure the safety of patients admitted or visiting public hospitals under the national government. And 5, efforts being made to ensure that the families of the deceased persons are duly compensated by Kenyatta National Hospital and Moi Teaching and Referral Hospitals, respectively, due to the negligence in its duty of care owed to their kin. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
This question is referred to the Committee on Health. Majority Whip. Majority Whip. Order. Majority Whip. I'm looking for your attention. Because the next time these matters come up, I will not ask the chairs, I'll ask you about them. The first statement was by the member for Machakos County on withdrawal of funds by USAID. This one is about security at Kenyatta National Hospital. because you cannot see the chairman of that committee here, it's going to be your duty to ensure that these statements are responded to. I hope you heard the statement question she requested.
Yes, I heard, and I'm sure it will be responded to.
In how long?
Thank you. I think immediately after recess.
That's 2 weeks. That's 3 weeks from today.
Yes.
Okay. I hope you note that, the member for Nairobi County. The next question is from the member for West Mugirango.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to make this statement. The Honorable Speaker, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order number 442C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Regional Development regarding the state of preparedness of our country for the cyclical wet season in the Lake Victoria rain belt and particularly the Gusii Highlands.
The member for Nairobi, I would request you take your seat for a few minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the wet season, which ordinarily commences around the month of March, which we are in, is characterized by very heavy rain, lightning, flooding, hailstones, and very destructive storm water. Residents of the hilly Lake Victoria rain belt, including those in West Mugirango and Gusii land, suffer immense loss of property, lives, and livelihoods during this rainy season. Crops, Mr. Speaker, get wiped away. Crops like tea, vegetable, and sometimes even gravel roads completely get wiped away, making the roads unmotorable. Despite the budget allocations for emergency and humanitarian responses, there has not been any significant permanent intervention for preventing and mitigating the impact of these cyclical and recurrent disasters. This has affected the economic growth of my constituency, the Gusii region and the Lake Victoria rain belt, making the cost of living extremely high and occasionally subjecting some homes to starvation. Mr. Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Regional Development on the following. Measures the government has put in place to ensure timely and effective information on hazardous weather so that the residents of West Mugirango and other affected areas within the hilly Lake Victoria rain belt become warned in good time. Number two, a detailed report on the interventions being implemented by the government to ensure timely emergency response, including prepositioning of relief supplies to affected families and homes. Number three, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking for the long-term mitigation strategies that the government intends to adopt to address these recurrent disasters, including climate adaptation measures that the residents and citizens need to be educated on. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking for measures being made to educate and equip residents with knowledge on disaster management so as to improve their resilience and mitigate the effects of the recurrent harsh weather conditions. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. You want to comment on this? On this request for statement? Go ahead. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While I appreciate our girls who are in the galleries and to welcome them in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, but also to say I think that statement is very critical. And when you look at the weather right now, the way it is, and very hot, it means the rains that are going to come, Mr. Speaker, are not going to be rains that we will start screaming again when our people are being taken by floods, when Nairobi is just becoming more chaotic. And so it's not just for Kisii, but I think the most important thing, as the chairman brings his answers to this House, Mr. Speaker, we would want to see how are we prepared, because we are going to go into a very tough turmoil, and we will hate to see what happened last year happening again, as if we have not learned our lessons. So for me, Mr. Speaker, it's about Nairobi. I remember in Mathare, we lost many lives at night. It should never happen. And I'm hoping we are preparing, and government is preparing, not just saying preparing, then when it comes to that time, but also even us ourselves, that we are not throwing garbages in those drainages, that we are trying to clear those drainages, because that's what now makes everyone go through that flood. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm hoping we'll have a comprehensive answer on that matter of how well we are prepared.
Thank you. The Honorable Wako, there seems to be no chairs in the House today. What we expect on this is a comprehensive statement, not on Kisii, but for the country holistically. What is our preparedness about the wet season for the whole country? I hope you can relay this to the chairperson of the relevant committee. And therefore, the request is referred to the Committee on Regional Development. The next one is a member for Joe Ndaragwa. Is in the House. This should be in the next 2 weeks, or 3 weeks for that matter, because of the break. The Honorable Wako, the next 3 weeks. When you come from recess, we want an answer on that report. Member for Ndaragwa is in the House. The member for Westlands, you have been on intervention for a while now.
Mr. Speaker, I had wanted to comment on the statement that Esther, the member from Nairobi had presented, but I don't know if it is overtaken by events or we can still comment.
You can go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I was also just concerned about this security at our health facilities. If people can walk in a ward in a hospital and murder somebody and just get away with it, and nobody is responding or being responsible for that, it just raises a lot of concern.